I'm drawing infinite cards in Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51 Space Gem, Colorless Card. Rubik's Cube, that is, a square shape of a cube. Observing from a close distance, the appearance of the Rubik's Cube constantly overflows with a mysterious and strange atmosphere, and it seems to contain a small universe inside. Kyle suppressed the excitement in his heart, materialized the item card of Zyunjin Arm Guard, put it on his bare right hand, and then reached out to grab the Rubik's Cube sandwiched by the wooden board in the mouth of the venom shark. It wasn't until Zyunjin held the Rubik's Cube in the palm of Zyunjin's protective hand that two card messages glowing with radiance jumped out of Kyle's vision. The colors of those two cards were not white, green, blue, or purple, but almost colorless, with crystal-like pure colorful colors. Universe Rubik's Cube, a container containing one of the Infinity Gems, the Space Stone, also known as the Infinity Cube, a colorless item card. With the power of space, it can open the door of space and send people and objects to any place in the universe. Current status, not extractable, integrated with Space Gem, hard to use. The second colorless card almost fits together with a previous colorless card, like overlapping shadows. Space Gem, one of the 6 infinite gems in the universe, the gem that masters space, a colorless item card. Almost the earliest thing in the universe, and almost the most powerful thing in the universe. Using this gem, you can move yourself or all objects to any space in the universe at will in an instant. You can also distort or rearrange the space arbitrarily according to your own will, and you can easily achieve space teleportation, space stillness, and space retrospect if you take it to the extreme. Current status, extractable, difficult to master and use. 2. Colorless item cards. Kyle was a little confused when he saw it. He thought it was just a cosmic Rubik's Cube item card, but the ability to draw cards insisted on distinguishing gems from Rubik's Cube containers. The container cannot be extracted, but the space gem can be extracted. Do you want to smoke? Kyle thought carefully, weighed the pros and cons, and quickly came to a choice: smoke. No smoking, no smoking. Even if this god-level item is kept, it will be left unused on the Earth for more than half a century. It was not until the arrival of Thor's younger brother Loki in the 21st century that the mystery of space transmission in it was gradually discovered. Although it is time for Thanos to start collecting gems, this infinite gem is also a hot potato. But if you have the opportunity to study and master the extraordinary ability of the space gem first, that is the real step to the sky. Kyle made up his mind, so he focused on the colorless card of Space Gem. Start drawing. Please keep a distance of 3 centimeters from the object and continue to extract for 3 hours. The start of extracting and reading. 10,799s, 10,798s. Kyle, keep 3 centimeters and extract for 3 hours. You must know that the extraction of blue quality materials is only within 1 meter plus 3 seconds. Should it be said to be a colorless quality? Kyle smiled wryly, kept holding the Rubik's Cube in his hand, sat back on the sun chair and waited patiently, and there was no task in his body. This time is still affordable. If he guessed correctly, colorless should be the highest quality card, and the difference between it and purple quality is unknown by how many levels. However, maybe the Infinity Gauntlet with 6 gems is a colorless rare quality. Everything is too far away. Kyle thought uninterestedly, waiting for the countdown to end when the card was drawn. 3 hours later. 3, 2, 1, the drawing is successful. Congratulations on getting Space Gem. With a message of drawing cards in his mind, the blue light of the Rubik's Cube in Kyle's hand suddenly dimmed a lot, as if the inner fire had been taken away out of thin air, leaving only enough gemstones remaining. At the same time, in Kyle's exclusive card Space Gem, the moment the colorless card enters, it immediately leaps up unstoppably, like a round of bright sun hanging at the highest point of the card space, shining tens of thousands of cards in the 6 major card areas in the space. They all suppressed it to show their supremacy. The card space should be the safest and most reliable storage place in the world. Let's put the Space Gem in it first. Kyle's mind incarnation looked at the Space Gem colorless card in the card space, and quickly withdrew from it. Space gems are not existences that can exert corresponding abilities by holding them. For him now, it's like a child getting an energy weapon and using it rashly without researching it, and the result is often asking for trouble. Red Skull taught him a lesson by demonstrating it himself. Kyle's mind had just exited the card space, only to find that the Rubik's Cube in the palm of his hand began to undergo subtle changes after losing the inner space gem. The most obvious change is that the color level of the card information displayed in the eyes quickly changed from colorless to golden. Out of rank? Kyle was dumbfounded, seeing that there was still a little blue light and mysterious atmosphere in his hand, but it was not as good as the previous Cosmic Rubik's Cube. It was a Cosmic Rubik's Cube, colorless card. After the inner space gem was taken away, it fell into another brand new golden item card, and even the item name was changed Magic Cube Container. It used to be the container of one of the infinite gemstones, aliased as the Infinite Cube Gold item card. There is a little power of space left, which can open the door of space for a short time, but the existence of the door of space is unstable, and it may cause the space to collapse at any time. It will continue to break after use. Current status, unextractable, the power of the remaining space gems. Kyle was silent for a moment, and finally shook his head and laughed. It's kind of interesting. This can be regarded as an unexpected harvest. It is estimated that no one in the universe would have imagined that there is actually the ability to draw cards without destroying the external Rubik's Cube container and directly take away the space gem. Wait, why do I think this can dig a hole for the future Thanos? Kyle touched his smooth chin. The Cosmic Rubik's Cube has not been damaged at all, and it still contains a little residual energy of the space gem. Throwing this empty Cosmic Rubik's Cube out of your hands can also save you a lot of trouble. Kyle couldn't help but smile when he thought of this. He can already imagine in the future, when Thanos got the Cosmic Rubik's Cube through untold hardships and crushed it to embed the space gem on the Infinity Gauntlet, but found that there was nothing inside, how would that eggplant-like face turn green, ugly? Now that the space gem is in his hands. It is the biggest gain of this campaign, and Kyle does not intend to continue to stay in the Atlantic Ocean. Looking at the vast sea in front of him, he sighed secretly. Steve, it seems that we really will meet again in more than half a century. Actually, there is no need to worry. For you, this may be just a short nap with your eyes closed. After waking up, it will be the peaceful age that you often yearn for. The one who stays is the one who will continue to move forward in this war age. Kyle's gaze became more determined, allowing the venom to cover his body's surface and transforming into a black combat uniform, and his mind summoned a blue eagle to return here. After disappearing for half a month, it was time to show up. Chapter 52. The basement of the U.S. military training base. Howard, Fury, and Carter were discussing on a world map with solemn faces. The starting point is the Hydra organization base under the Alps, and the destination of the autopilot is New York. According to the normal flight speed of the out-of-control transport fighter plane and the time it takes for the communication signal to be cut off and disappeared, it can be calculated that the out-of-control fighter plane has a very high probability of ending up in the end fell into the sea. Howard, wearing a suit and tie, stood in front of the world map and drew a circle in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean with a black water-based pen, enclosing the inner area that should be investigated. However, the center of the sea area, where the out-of-control fighter plane is most likely to crash, has been dived for the first time, and no traces have been found. Therefore, it is inevitable to consider whether the out-of-control fighter plane deviated from the trajectory of the automatic pilot at that time, and the ocean currents and the distribution of sea glaciers. Speaking of this, Howard's expression was heavy, and he drew another larger circle outside the original circle to enclose the map of the Atlantic Ocean. Fury, who was seated below, shook his head and sighed. If you have to use a submarine to dive into the bottom of the sea every 10 meters to check carefully in the enclosed sea area, you won't be able to find the wreckage of the fighter even after 10 years. I can't give up, Carter said with a cold face and a firm tone. Those two people will not die so easily. They agreed and will definitely come back, of course. Not only the military's submarines, but Stark Industries, will also invest in them and send professional divers into the sea to search for them. I will not give up until I find them. Howard nodded in agreement. After a moment of silence, he still expressed his concerns. What I'm afraid of is that the out-of-control fighter will encounter the ice floes on the seamounts. It's the time when there are many cold currents in the Atlantic winter. If the fallen fighter is frozen and sinks, that is, even if you search for 100 years, you will not be able to find even a little bit of fighter parts. As soon as the words came out, Fury and Carter in the basement fell silent. In fact, after the out-of-control fighter plane fell from the sea and lost communication, Although the US military also sent fighter planes and submarines to try their best to find it, it has long been acquiesced that Steve and Kyle died unfortunately. But even if it is confirmed that Steve and Kyle are dead, the news will be suppressed by the military. After all, the death of a hero who symbolizes the country will have an unbearable impact in wartime. At this moment, an informing soldier came down from the corridor stairs and said to Carter, "Agent Carter, someone from outside the base sent something in and said it was for you." Huh? Carter was puzzled, but he also took the box from the soldier who informed him, and subconsciously asked, "Who is that person?" A little girl, said to be Agent Carter's friend, ran away without being questioned by the guards at the base. The box passed the inspection of the equipment and we sent it in after confirming it was safe. "Thank you for your hard work." Carter nodded, and put the box on the meeting table after notifying the soldiers to leave. The cardboard box was neither too big nor too small, and the opening was sealed with tape, and there was a short paragraph of English on it, to Carter. Carter's beautiful eyes looked at the English handwriting, and he was stunned. Howard also felt that the atmosphere of the meeting during this period was too heavy, so he couldn't help but joked, "Could it be sent by someone who admires you? Maybe it's intelligence information." "Let me help you open the box." Fury raised his hand and offered to help. After Carter's permission, he quickly took the scissors and cut off the sealed tape. The box was quickly opened by his tough guy, and the contents of the box were revealed under the dim light. It was a brand new folded red evening dress with a card with a rose on the front. Dress? Rose card? Fury was disappointed, not interested in this kind of female items, and retreated directly to his seat. Howard shrugged. "It seems that what I said is true. Miss Carter, do you need an emissary to protect the flowers?" Carter didn't speak, and went forward to pick up the rose card from the box. After turning it over, the back of the card was still written in English. "Here I solemnly invite Miss Carter on Friday, that is, at, o'clock tomorrow night. I will participate in the song and dance party of the TUO Bird Club." "It's back," Carter said softly. "Come back." Both Howard and Fury were slightly taken aback, looked at each other, and then looked at her eagerly. "Who do you think is back?" The day passed, and Friday night arrived as scheduled. In the big city near the base, TUO Club is located in the center of the busiest street. The carpet at the front entrance is spread inward, and the lighting maintains an emotional neon light. Beep. An extended luxury car parks steadily in front of the club's main entrance. As the driver, Howard got out of the car first, and the gentleman opened the passenger's door for help. The slender feet inside stepped on high heels first, and then Carter, who was dressed in a luxurious tube-top evening dress, got out of the car. Her beautiful and glamorous face looks outstanding and charming after careful dressing, and her blonde hair is combed up, revealing her delicate collarbone further down. The tube-top evening dress cleverly displayed its perfect shoulders and body lines, which coexisted sexy and elegant, and the red-based evening dress matched the fair skin, making it difficult to move your eyes away. "Carter, you must be the most dazzling person at the party tonight," Howard sighed, waving his hands and urging, "Go in quickly, don't make people wait too long." After speaking, Howard sat back in the driver's seat of the car, started the extended version of the car and drove away, leaving Carter standing alone in front of the door. Carter took a deep breath, pressed his palms lightly on his chest, and walked into the club nervously. Through the main entrance guarded by formally dressed waiters, I walked all the way into the corridor, but the inside was not as lively as usual. On the contrary, except for the faint lights in the corridor to maintain visibility, the main hall of the club dance of the party was completely dark. There was no music, no lights, and no other guests, not even the club staff. Carter looked at the silent and dark hall in front of him, and was about to call out. At this moment, the lights around him and above his head suddenly turned on. Wow, the originally dark main hall was brightly visible in an instant, and then under the sound of soft music played by various instruments, as if rehearsed countless times, couples of gentlemen and ladies held hands and poured into the main hall from all directions, following singing and dancing gracefully. "Is it you?" Carter couldn't help asking, looking around at the people dancing to the right tune, as if trying to find a familiar figure among them. "No," a familiar deep voice sounded from among the musicians playing the tune. Carter looked for his reputation and saw a handsome young man in a black tuxedo standing up from the piano seat. "It's me. I'm very disappointed," Kyle spread his hands and said to Carter, who was looking at the center of the main hall. "Yet, even if you came here on behalf of someone else, you're too late." Carter smiled, with tears of excitement in his beautiful eyes. Let me say a few points first. There are not many emotional scenes in the future, so let's watch and cherish them. Non-harem novel, single female protagonist. Third, Carter is not a heroine. Chapter 53 One night. TUO Bird Club, the main hall. The classical lamps hung on the surrounding walls and ceiling illuminate the ballroom. Beautiful tunes flow in the hall like a stream of water. Couples of gentlemen in suits and ladies in dresses are dancing lightly, immersing themselves in this entertainment place far away from the smoke of war above. If the club here hadn't been directly booked out, and if professional dancers were dressed as dancing guests, when Kyle in a tuxedo appeared in the ballroom, it would definitely arouse the crowd's enthusiastic onlookers and sensation. Kyle, the youngest major officer in the United States, a hero who symbolizes American strength and conquest since the Hydra organization was eradicated by uprooting and annihilating, it has once again become a legendary figure talked about in the streets and alleys of Europe and the United States. Although it is too exaggerated to describe it as a legendary, it can influence and reverse the entire European battlefield by itself, and it hurts Germany, which has a strong military force in World War II in the eyes of American soldiers and some fanatical fans. Kyle is a veritable legendary hero, and his reputation and prestige far exceed those of generals and officers. Europe is fine now in today's United States. Among the domestic conscription promotional films, 6 of the 10 screenings must be exclusive to Kyle, and the other 4 are war documentaries in which Kyle and Captain Steve fought side by side. It is conceivable how powerful Kyle's halo as a war hero is now. The hope was dim, but it was ignited again, and the confident young man kept his promise and came back. Carter, who was standing in the middle of the dance hall, just looked at Kyle, who came out of the separated singing and dancing crowd, and was speechless for a while. Kyle also remained silent, not knowing what to say, and finally took a deep breath and said, "Sorry, I didn't bring Steve back." As soon as these words came out, the originally relaxed and pleasant atmosphere suddenly became heavy. Carter took a few steps forward, shook his head and said, "It's not entirely your fault, and we can't predict what will happen on the fighter plane. No, what I can predict a little bit is that I don't pay much attention to Schmidt." I thought. Before Kyle finished speaking, Carter shook his head at him again, and said slowly, "Enough is enough, that's over." After finishing speaking, Carter stretched out his palm slightly forward. There was a hint of anticipation hidden in the depths of his beautiful eyes, and his red lips parted slightly. "Didn't Steve ask you to come for him and invite me to dance? Why did you come here? It's been 2 weeks, it's a bit far out at sea, so I'm late." Kyle made an excuse casually, hesitated, imitated Howard's gentlemanly way of reaching out, and took Carter's soft palm. "You can't dance, I can teach you, just don't step on my shoes," Carter said, and he was about to lead Kyle to dance slowly to the tune of the hall. "That's not necessary," Kyle laughed dumbly. "There are really not many common skills in the world that he doesn't know. Even if there are, just read and draw cards directly." In particular, the green party dance card was drawn from the woman Carter, but so far there is no chance to use it. Just as the gentle tune in the hall stopped, another rushing and passionate song sounded. Kyle took the initiative by stepping directly, and began to guide with superb dance skills no less than professional. Under the exquisite control of power, he held Carter's waist with one hand, and danced her with a slight levitation rotation. Carter quickly kept up with the pace, and the red skirt spun and fluttered. A trace of surprise flashed in her beautiful eyes. She really didn't expect Kyle to be so handy in this dance besides fighting and killing on the battlefield. Kyle held Carter with one hand and the other slender waist with the other, and began to dance to the more passionate tunes. With his strong and perfect figure, wearing a tuxedo naturally makes him look like a thin gentleman in a city greenhouse. It lacks the coldness and murderousness of the black combat uniform, and is more gentle and handsome. Paired with the glamorous and beautiful Carter tonight, the appearance itself is pleasing to the eye. In addition, the dance moves of the two are vigorous and neat, and they cooperate with each other. The difficult moves are easily completed, and each other's hand movements and steps are aligned with the song itself tune. At some point, Kyle and Carter occupied the very center of the ballroom, causing the eyes of the surrounding people to fall on them with amazement and admiration. Until the end of the song, Kyle slowly supported Carter's slender waist and stopped her body, while Carter slightly pressed his palms on his broad chest. As if amazed by the high integrity of the dance, the people in the ballroom applauded one after another. "It's over," Kyle shrugged and retracted his hands. A gleam of disappointment flashed across Carter's beautiful eyes, and he could only slowly put down his palm, and said in surprise, "I didn't expect you to be able to dance. Before I became a soldier, I learned it from my parents at home." Kyle responded casually, and said bluntly, "Is there anything else you want to do? I just happen to be free tonight. Are you going to go to the front again tomorrow? By the way, you haven't returned to the base to report for half a month." Carter pondered for a moment, then summoned up his courage and said, "Then, let's go to a bar, drink, you and me." Kyle looked at Carter in surprise. "Isn't this just drinking between comrades in arms and brothers? What kind of wine do men and women drink?" He thought for a while, and said with a slightly hesitant face, "You don't really like me as Steve said, do you?" Carter was stunned for a moment, hiding from Kyle's thoughtful gaze, and waved his hand. "How is this possible? You are overthinking. That's good." Kyle breathed a sigh of relief and said with a relieved smile, "I'll just say it, Steve lied to me in the end. Even if he didn't say that, I will still take care of you. I don't need you to take care of me." Carter glanced at him, and said in a much colder tone, "Do you want to drink or not?" Kyle nodded. "Drink. It's rare to relax for the last time. Why not drink? Just don't get drunk. I can't help a big man like you." Carter snorted coldly. "Just kidding. How is that possible?" Kyle shook his head bored, but this worry did not exist at all. The metabolism of his super soldier physique is 4 times that of a human being, so can he be poured down with just a little wine? The next morning, the white gauze curtains were blown by the breeze from the window, and the dazzling golden sunlight poured into the room. Kyle gradually woke up from the bed. His head was still a little dizzy, with a slight after effect of being drunk last night. Really drunk. Kyle smiled wryly while lying under the quilt in the shape of Big. He was too embarrassing for the super soldier. He thought he would not get drunk, so he tasted different wines with high levels again and again, until he realized that when he was drunk, it was too late. But this is also because he is in the rest stage, and it doesn't matter if he gets drunk once to eliminate the pressure of wartime. If he is waiting for a battle or on a mission, he will not touch even a sip of wine. By the way, I really troubled Carter last night. Kyle tore off the blanket, looked at the missing tuxedo uniform, and replaced it with simple pajamas provided by the club. He vaguely remembered that it took Carter and a few waiters a lot of effort to help him into the room last night, and it seemed that Carter helped him change the clothes. Then, there is no memory of getting drunk later. Chapter 54. How to say come here. Oh, drunken sex. Kyle got up quickly and rolled around, looked at the bed, the floor in the bathroom, but he couldn't find any women's clothes, so he breathed a sigh of relief. As long as nothing happened last night, don't help Frozen Steve take care of others, and ended up taking care of him on the bed. But where did that tuxedo go? Yesterday was the rest time, and Kyle didn't let the Venom change into a dress and uniform. The last time he was out of curiosity, he was almost exposed. Instead, he stuck the Venom and put on real clothes. This also led to no knowledge of what happened after being drunk late last night. Maybe I let the waiter take it for cleaning. Kyle didn't care. It was just a piece of clothing, and it was not a very expensive thing. He simply washed his body in the bathroom, put on his underwear refreshedly, and then took out the Venom card from the card space, threw it on the bed to make it materialize. Gilulu, the Venom moved in the bed, and the humanization hung down the black line formed by its own liquid, as if saying something wrong to Kyle. It is used to symbiosis with Kyle on the battlefield, and it becomes more and more obsessed with his symbiotic state. In other words, all creatures subconsciously yearn for evolution. The symbiotic race of Venom itself relies on the fusion and symbiosis with other creatures to gradually learn the physical ability of the host, so as to achieve the evolution process of improving self-strength. Okay, it's time to return to the base, Kyle said, stretching out his hand towards the Venom, and the liquid body of the Venom suddenly happily turned into countless black lines, extending, winding, package, and finally illusion. Kyle looked at the whole set of black solid clothes on his body, and patted the logo of the battle suit on his chest angrily. It's not a combat suit. Let's change into a casual one first. Swah. Like a chameleon's camouflage, Kyle's battle suit quickly transformed into jacket and jeans. There is such a benefit in carrying Venom on your body every day. You can save money on clothes and the trivial time to change clothes. Out of the door of the room where he stayed, Kyle walked in the corridor of the club, and the waiters along the way all greeted him good morning. For VIPs who hold both military power and wealth, they can't wait for Kyle to come and book the venue everyday prom. As soon as he was about to walk out of the main entrance of the club, Kyle seemed to remember something. stopped a passing waitress and asked, "Ask me something, where's the lady who danced with me last night, Mr. Kyle, you are talking about Miss Carter, right?" The waitress quickly stopped and turned to him and replied, "Miss Carter left the club alone very early today." "Really? You didn't wait for me to return to the base together?" Kyle shook his head, reached into his wallet pocket with his left hand, materialized something that was concealed by the pocket, and quickly took out a club card and handed it to the girl. The waiter said, "Here is the VIP card I opened with you last night. There should be more than $9,000 in deposit in it. Carter will dance here again in the future, and all consumption will be paid from here, okay?" The waitress lowered her head and took the VIP card with both hands, and then raised her head, only to find that Kyle had walked out of the main door, leaving her with a tall and cold back. The basement of the training base, the scientific research department. Kyle just walked into the door with his front foot, and there was a strong explosion sound inside. A familiar figure in a research uniform was knocked down by the explosion blast and fell to the ground in embarrassment, with smoke still rising from his body. "Howard, you really look the same," Kyle said, staring at the scientific gentleman lying on the ground with a strange expression. Kyle, the gentleman was stunned when he saw Kelton at the door, then rubbed his eyes, and after confirming that it was correct, he got up from the ground excitedly. "Kyle, you are finally back." Howard stepped forward quickly, and because of his height, he could only hold Kyle's belt up a little bit, and said excitedly, "If you don't come back, I won't be in the mood to go to banquets and bars these days. You are not just my friend, comrade in arms, and my best partner in creating top-notch industries with me in the future." The last sentence is the key. "I haven't finished researching what I gave you, so don't try to take some black technology from me," Kyle complained, pushing him away from his body. "Fire, theft," and Howard glance. "Ha ha ha. If Carter didn't ask to go alone last night, I couldn't help but go into the club to see you," Howard said with a smile. He was really happy that his best friend was back. "Huh? Do you know that the box is from me?" Kyle looked at Howard in surprise. "This is a ball gown, a rose card, etc. Most people would think it was other gentlemen who admired Carter. No matter how bad it is, they will only mistakenly think that Steve is back." Howard said cheerfully, "You underestimate Agent Carter too much. You wrote the English handwriting on the box and the card. She recognized it from you at a glance." "Really?" Kyle fell silent, flashing through the scenes of last night in his mind, realizing if he missed something. "By the way, Miss Carter didn't come back with you. Could it be?" Howard's eyes became strange, similar to the research on scientific strategies, full of a gentleman's desire to know. "Don't get me wrong. Nothing happened between her and me last night. I thought she had returned to the base long ago." Kyle waved his hand a little guilty, and changed the subject. "By the way, when I entered the training base, I found out that the number of soldiers stationed in the base has decreased a lot. And where did Fury go?" "Oh, you just returned to the base, and you don't know the current battle situation," Howard suddenly realized, and said with a serious face, "The leaders of our army, Britain, and the Soviet Union decided at the alliance meeting not long ago that Germany is on the front line at this time. Suffering a disastrous defeat, they plan to gather forces in one fell swoop and attack directly from the English Channel into German territory. Triple Allied forces attacking Germany, from the English Channel? D-Day." The name of this battle flashed across Kyle's mind, and he never thought that the Marvel world was so similar to the world history of the previous life, embarking on the same war course. The Normandy landings were a historic super-large battle in the latter part of World War II. After this battle, Germany was completely captured and surrendered. Only Ben, who was on the Asian battlefield, was left to bite the bullet and hold on. Howard went on to say, "Last night, we sent the news of your return to the headquarters. General Chester replied with an order to let you go to the U.S. military's main base in Europe as soon as possible after returning to the training base. I really haven't let me relax." Kyle shrugged, his blue eyes showed a dangerous cold light, and his body and the Venom suit were quietly excited. "After resting for so long, it's time to move your muscles and bones for a big battle. I hope to meet an opponent who can show his strength on this super large battlefield." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55. By the way, "Where have you been missing for half a month?" Howard asked Kyle suspiciously. Kyle hesitated for a moment, and quickly replied, "Steve sank the out-of-control fighter plane into the sea alone. I parachuted ahead of time and landed on a desert island in the shape of a turtle in the Atlantic Ocean. I rested on it for a while." "Turtle-shaped desert island," Howard murmured, adding a new question, "Then how did you come back?" He didn't know that Kyle had a card space on him, not to mention the means of crossing the sea. That is, planes, tanks, villas, food, etc. are all available. "There is a giant mutated eagle beast on the turtle-shaped desert island. After I tamed it, it flew back with me on its back." Kyle spread his hands and said, "The question of concealing the existence of the card space was answered too much, and it was abnormal. It's easy to say. It's the turtle-shaped desert island and a mutated monster. It seems that your luck is really good." Howard nodded and smiled, and didn't delve into it too much. "My industrial partner is no ordinary person. Since he studied the cell phone and the supercomputer system program chip given by Kyle in depth, his mind has become more reasonable in this judgment. It is precisely because of this that Howard feels lucky that he is Kyle's friend. That is, he can use this to save decades of detours in the field of technology." Kyle looked at the smile on Howard's face, and nodded thoughtfully, with the corners of his mouth slightly raised. Howard, an old gentleman, is not just as simple as a science geek. He is also a sensible person who can deal with the military's important scientific strategy department, and his own private Stark Industries knows what to ask and what not to ask. The relationship between the two of them, established through connections with comrades in arms in the military, friends in daily life, and partners in private business, etc., under the two-line maintenance of interests and friendship, it is absolutely impossible to do things that harm each other, and they are called best friends. It's not an exaggeration. It seems that there are some things that you can safely talk to the person in front of you. Kyle was sure of his attention, looked at Howard together, and said, "The turtle-shaped desert island is in the center of the Atlantic Ocean. The location and environment are very good. After the war is over, if you find something better, a construction engineer or a construction company, maybe I can use it then. Now that World War II is raging, do you think about what will happen after the war so soon?" Howard blinked, but he quickly pondered and said, "You want to develop it into a villa and apartment for vacation after the war is over, a place or something, or something like a fort, for a casual fortress, just be able to resist the bombardment of missiles and thermal weapons. It doesn't matter how much it costs, and it will all be deducted from Stark Industries' share dividends," Kyle said directly. Howard nodded, and agreed straightforwardly, "That's fine. I also minored in construction engineering. After the war is over, I will go to the turtle-shaped desert island with you once, and I will arrange the construction of the whole process, then I will trouble you." Kyle's eyes showed a slight sense of expectation, not to mention that the end of the war is still far away, when the upcoming Normandy landing campaign is over. The world will return to peace in a short time. And the giant turtle-shaped island I have been talking about just now is naturally the only purple creature card in the card space, super large ancient dragon turtle. Since drawing that card, Kyle began to have an idea, to create his own fortress base and family power. No matter how high the military rank is in the future, even if it is a general, it will only be an officer who serves in the United States and obeys orders. Even the future director of S.H.I.E.L.D., who has the strongest elite group under his command, will be suppressed and targeted by various treaties, and evacuated by various enemies. Although Kyle believes that he will become stronger in the future, he is unwilling to fight alone all the time. If he can build an elite force of his own in advance, and even officially take root in this Marvel world to establish a legendary family, this is true. The real future. So now Kyle and Howard talked about building the fort in advance, which is the first step in creating family power in the future. Howard can guess a little of Kyle's intentions, but he will not disclose this news to anyone. On the contrary, while keeping the secret for Kyle, he will use his utmost efforts to help build the fortress base in the future. This is the tacit understanding and trust between the two men. I will help you pay attention to the construction team from now on. You are about to go to the U.S. military base to prepare for the battle. I made you a new piece of equipment, which should be useful, Howard said, waved and led Kyle into the storage area of the research room. The usual airlift storage box. Howard put it on the table and opened it, and there were two overlapping black round objects lying in the box. This thing is the crystallized product of my research on anti-gravity for so many years. It took half a month to make two pieces, and it cannot be mass-produced. Before Howard could explain, Kyle's attention fell on the two magnet-like round blocks, And he immediately got the corresponding item card information: gravity magnet, 2 gravity magnets with 1 reverse and 1 positive blue item card. Gravity magnets are internally composed of anti-gravity precision scientific research parts, which can change the gravity field in a small range when they touch the ground. When the positive gravity magnet falls on the ground, the area within a radius of 10 meters will double the gravitational force. When the anti-gravity magnet falls on the ground, the area within the radius of 10 meters will decrease by 1 time. The positive and negative 2 pieces touch the ground at the same time to cancel the effect, and the positive and negative gravity magnets will attract each other. One is thrown on the ground, and the other can be used to attract it back. Kyle slightly picked up the gravity magnet in a novelty, and tried to throw one of them to the open space at his feet. Snapped! The moment the anti-gravity magnet fell to the ground, the gravity in the research room suddenly doubled. Howard was still explaining how to use it, but because of the doubled increase in gravity, he couldn't stand still and sat down on the floor. "It's not bad," Kyle nodded and commented. Even he could clearly feel a little hindrance around his body. The increase in the gravity field indirectly doubled his weight, which is really unbearable for ordinary people. Kyle aimed the positive magnet in his hand at the magnetic block on the ground, and the positive and negative magnets attracted each other, and the anti-magnetic immediately flew back from the ground, and the gravity field in the room returned to its original state. Howard wiped the hot sweat off his forehead, stood up and concluded, "The increase or decrease of this gravitational field does not make much difference to the physical fitness of your super soldier, but once an ordinary soldier suddenly falls into the doubled or reduced gravitational field area, it will be a bit overwhelming and lose part of its combat capability. I've accepted the things. In addition, I also have something for you to study, so let's hand it over to the country," Kyle said, and put the backpack he had been carrying on the table. The zipper had just been opened, and the blue light inside just seeped out little by little. It is a cosmic Rubik's Cube that lacks core gems. Chapter 56: War Hero. The general base of the U.S. military's temporary camp in the coastal areas of the United Kingdom and Europe. After the leaders of the United States, Britain, and the Soviet Union decided to form an allied force and invade Germany together, in less than a month, the temporary U.S. base here has expanded more than 5 times, and countless military uses. Temporary tents are densely set up inside. The American troops who were once distributed in various frontline battlefields in Europe also accepted the order of the 5-star general to gather here, and a large number of weapons and ammunition were continuously transported here day and night. And this is only the preparatory stage of the U.S. fleet, except that most of the soldiers crossed the strait through ships and landed straight to Germany opposite the British coast, and there are thousands of Air Force fighters busy preparing at other bases. This is the eve of a super large battle. More than 10 U.S. soldiers, as the main force, temporarily camped in the general base, waiting for the time to gather and attack. At this time, in the U.S. temporary general base, teams of shirtless American soldiers were exercising in the vast open space of the camp. Under the direct sunlight at noon, they were full of hormones and blood. The plane with Major Kyle is coming. Heroes who symbolize American power and conquest have come to our general base. I don't know who first spread this kind of news, but it soon became a sensational and powerful hurricane, sweeping the entire U.S. general base. Kyle is here. This demonic slogan, which can instantly stop the naughty behavior and crying of children in Germany, falls in the ears of Americans and soldiers, and it has another kind of group inspiration that is almost fanatical. In just half a minute, almost all the American soldiers who were idle rushed to the parking area of the general base to meet the plane, causing half of the roads inside the general base to be covered with flying dust. Joseph, who was also at the general base, opened the doors and windows of the officers' meeting room, looked at the soldiers running wildly outside the window, and couldn't help but sigh with emotion. "Kyle, that boy is really amazing. As long as he comes, the whole army of the base will morale can soar rapidly. This is the charm of war heroes." Brant sat dully in his office seat, staring blankly at the bustling general base, pursing his lips and making no sound. Joseph blinked and said, "Brant, are you still struggling with the previous conflicts?" "I believe Kyle has long forgotten about that trivial matter." "Of course he forgot." Brant shook his head, and said angrily, "I'm still a second lieutenant now. He's already a major, and he's still an American hero." "It's my honor to have a marksmanship match with an American hero." Joseph secretly sighed, knowing that Brant still couldn't let go of the past during the training period. Indeed, it took less than a year for a recruit who was not favored by him to have half the world remember his name. which really damaged the reputation of the recruit instructor too much? But who can blame this? Then I'll go and have a look too. There's a lot of dust outside, so you can stay indoors. After Joseph finished speaking, he put on his hat and walked out of the conference room door, closing the doors and windows. Brant was left alone on the office seat in a daze, wanting to groan, but in the end all of them turned into a sigh. Originally, among the recruits he taught, 2 American heroes could directly emerge at the same time. In the parking area of the general base, the transport fighter plane buzzed from the end of the runway and landed on the ground. 4 soldiers with guns jumped down from the door first. Kyle stepped on the ladder lowered by the fuselage and walked out of the transport fighter. He was wearing a black and cold characteristic battlesuit, with 2 small energy pistols strapped to the outside of his legs, a sodium carbon steel sword with a leather sheath hanging on his back, the cross symbol of the devil on the chest of the battlesuit, and a cross on the left shoulder. Insignia of the rank of major in the United States. The sunlight outside was very glaring. Kyle wanted to block the sun with his hands, but as soon as he stepped off the transport fighter and looked straight ahead, he was slightly stunned the next moment. Tens of thousands of American soldiers in military combat uniforms filled the large open space next to the transport fighter planes, and there was no end in sight at a glance. When they saw Kyle, they didn't make disrespectful actions such as cheering or whistling, but with love and smiles on their faces, they quickly raised their hands and clapped. The waves of applause converged into thunder, which resounded endlessly over the general base. "Kyle, you are back," from the crowd of soldiers, a black officer wearing a left eye patch squeezed out and walked towards Kyle excitedly. "You say I'm a war madman. How can I be missing in a large-scale war?" Kyle shrugged, hugged with Fairy Bear, and patted each other on the back. "Hiss, your strength has increased a lot, so use less force," Fury gasped and took half a step back. So, Kyle said with a smile. "The physique of the super soldier has been fixed at a peak value, and it cannot be improved through exercise. Fury feels that the improvement of his strength is only from the blessing of the continuous growth of the venom suit on his body." "Kyle," a loud voice sounded, and it took Joseph a lot of effort to squeeze out from the crowd of soldiers. "Instructor Joseph, you came here too?" Kyle nodded to him, and asked, "By the way, you often go back to New York. I don't know how Lucy is doing now." "She's fine. I've already said hello to the police station on the local street." "Please don't worry," Joseph said with a smile. "Then thank you. Next time you go back, please help me bring something back to her." Kyle nodded. He didn't forget Lucy, who lived in his home, but the battlefield was always in Europe, and he didn't have much time to get away. "Back to New York." "No problem," Joseph agreed. Fury urged from the side, "Kyle, I'm not just here to pick up the plane, but also with General Chetta's instructions. He asked me to go to the base command room to meet him immediately after you arrive at the main base." General Chettas, the commander-in-chief of the Allied forces in this battle, Kyle nodded, and immediately let Fury lead the way. Kyle walked forward, and the crowded crowd of soldiers suddenly separated to the 2 sides, making way for a smooth path. Except for the soldiers of the original training base, the 102nd Regiment, and the Roaring Commando, the soldiers of the other frontline troops and the new recruits have never seen Kyle. It is conceivable that the heart is surging when seeing the war hero himself. This kind of passionate emotion was conveyed through warm applause, and it was not relieved until Kyle's back disappeared from the crowd. Notes for reading: this is the Earth world of Marvel fans. Don't use realistic military history and technology to study nonsense, otherwise you will be asking for trouble. Don't connect to the real world. Everything will be very cool in terms of the high-tech parallel world of Marvel. Daily request for recommendation tickets, double shift time, around 12:22 and around, Chapter 57. Under Fury's lead, Kyle followed to the command room of the U.S. General Base. "Go in, I'm just helping to deliver a message." Fury stopped at the door of the command room and motioned for Kyle to go in alone. "Okay, I'll see you later," Kyle nodded, and walked directly into the command room without stage fright. The interior is monotonous and simple, with a huge strategic map as a decorative background banner and an American flag with stripes and stars. A middle-aged military officer is sitting behind a military desk full of materials. The middle-aged officer also looked to be in his early 40s, with a majestic and tough face, wearing a complete set of officer uniform, with a general-level distinguished military rank logo clearly pinned on the left chest of the uniform, with 5 stars added to it. 5-star General, the highest-ranking general in the United States during World War II, is also the highest commander of the Triple Allied Forces. Kyle looked at the general and officer in front of him, stood firmly on his feet and gave a standard salute, and said loudly, "Major Kyle, come and report." General Chester raised his head, looked up and down with sharp eyes at Kyle, who was standing within 3 meters in front of him, and then nodded with a gentle smile. "Major Kyle, you are back." Kyle nodded and said, "Yes, in the battle in the Alps, some accidents happened in order to chase Schmidt, the leader of Hydra. Steve drove an out-of-control fighter plane and fell into the sea. I parachuted early and escaped. Steve, for the specific details, I have read the telegram sent by Agent Carter." General Chester sighed regretfully, and said to Kyle, "If you can come back safely, you are already a member of our army." The biggest victory, at this critical moment of World War II, war heroes cannot be easily defeated. General Chester paused here for a while, and said meaningfully, "Actually, I personally wanted to see you for a long time. You must know that the super soldier experiment was originally completed by my order. But you refused. I did the pioneer experiment of super soldiers and gave up the opportunity to Steve in the same barracks. I still remember that." Kyle was ashamed, shrugged and said, "About this, I can only say that I was too proud at the time and didn't cherish the opportunity to become a super soldier. Fortunately, I was lucky enough to become the second super soldier by coincidence. Facts have proved that you have that proud capital." General Chester shook his head slightly, and said in a deep voice, "After Steve became the only super soldier, I am also very optimistic about American justice and iron will in him, so I also specially taught him fighting skills. Steve can become Captain America, an American hero. Although it exceeds my expectations, it is also expected. It's you, Kyle, from the recruits in the training base to the miracles of war on the frontline battlefield, step by step through your own strength to the hero status that now dominates the battlefield. It can be said to be far beyond my imagination." After General Chester finished speaking, he looked at Kyle with undisguised admiration. "Luck, it's all luck," Kyle said modestly. "This general has boasted himself to the sky, so it is rare to keep a low profile. If it's all luck, I probably hope that the goddess will spend all her luck on you." General Chester joked, and then said seriously, "Yesterday, after knowing that you returned to the training base safely, I made a special contact with you. The president contacted you to discuss your affairs. Consult me." Kyle was slightly taken aback, waiting for General Chester's next words. General Chester said earnestly, "I propose to make an exception for you to be promoted to the rank of Major General, and the president has already agreed." "Major General?" Kyle was really stunned this time. "What does the Major General mean?" "That's an officer at the rank of general. Although I had the proud promotion experience of jumping from a recruit to a corporal to a second lieutenant, and a second lieutenant to a major with superimposed military achievements, the jump this time is really too amazing. You must know that it takes a lot of time to accumulate military merits every time you are promoted to a small rank from a major, and it is less than a month since Kyle was promoted to the rank of major last time. General Chester, I probably haven't accumulated enough military merit to be promoted to Major General," Kyle said hesitantly. Ha, you said that if I only rely on military merit or record, I will fight for 50 years, and at most I will be capped by a 4-star general." General Chester laughed, woke Kyle up and said, "Now this is the second time in the world. During the Great War, there are exceptions to everything, right? 5-star general, the only one that appeared in the United States only during World War II." Kyle nodded thoughtfully. General Chester continued, "The military rules of the peaceful era are useless here. As long as you can better lead the war to victory, let alone a major general, even the position of a 5-star general, you can do it. It's just a major general. I don't dare to sit for no reason." Kyle nodded confidently, throwing out his last concern. "It's just that I am better at killing the enemy alone than commanding soldiers on the battlefield." "Give me, isn't it too extravagant to be a major general?" "It's not extravagant at all." General Chester smiled, and replied, "With your current reputation as a war hero, even if you make an exception to be promoted to the status of Major General, all our soldiers will only raise their hands in approval. What's more important is that the upcoming battle against Germany will be fought by the Allied forces led by our army. As a hero who represents our country in the conquest, your status as a major will inevitably make some officers from other countries look down upon you." Hearing this, Kyle quickly understood. General Chester made an exception to promote him to Major General, not just for him alone, but also for the face of the entire country and the army. The hero who symbolizes the power and conquest of the country is just a major. That's not good. At least the general level has cards. General Chester finally said slowly, part of the army you command can be handed over to an officer you trust enough to command. If there are no other problems, you will be a major general from now on, and the corresponding military rank badge can be transferred to you now. I will also hand in the relevant information for you, and the news of this promotion will be spread before our army and the Allied army meet. General, you have already arranged everything, so why should I refuse? Kyle spread his hands. This is a major general's rank force to come over. There is no reason not to accept it. 5 minutes later, Kyle left the command room speechlessly. Fury has been waiting not far from the door of the command room. When he saw Kyle coming out, he immediately greeted him. Hey, Kyle. What's the matter? Looking sullen. Look for yourself. Kyle lifted his left shoulder expressionlessly. Huh? Why did your rank of major become 2 stars? Fury stopped in amazement, wiped his right eye, and said bitterly, did my other eye appear? The question is, how did I see the insignia of the rank of Major General? You read that right, it's the rank of Major General, Kyle said boringly. Promotion is a good thing, the problem is, it is really unfulfilling to be promoted to Major General like this. Chapter 58 Super Agent. 3 days later, the time for the Triple Allied forces to gather and land on the hostile coast was imminent. In the early morning when the sky was only pale, dozens of large steel ships were preparing to berth off the coast of England, anchoring and waiting for the main force of the U.S. military base to board the ship first. At this time in the sea area slightly ahead of the ships, a giant battleship stretches across the sea like an overlord. The flagpole with stripes and stars flutters in the wind. The hull is protected by multiple steel armors, loaded with high-speed and powerful anti-aircraft guns. It is like a steel castle standing in the ocean. At the bow of the deck of this giant battleship, Kyle stood alone in the fence. In addition to the black battle suit transformed by Venom, he also wore a general's coat that represented his identity, making him look cold and majestic. Kyle is probably the only one who dares to wear the general's coat as a display. The wind from the sea was blowing head-on, pulling up his fine blonde hair and the sleeves of his general's coat. Tap tat tat, hurrying footsteps came from behind Kyle. Lieutenant Fury stood firm and said salutingly, report. The captain of the ship, the Navy, the medical staff of the Army, and the land combat soldiers have all boarded the battleship. Kyle, please. The Major General will give instructions on the next step. Kyle nodded. Very well, let them prepare for the battle on the ship first. There's still half a day before the sailing time for the attack. Yes, Fury accepted the command salute, and when he turned around to leave, he turned back and said bitterly, Kyle, are you a Major General or am I? Forget it, now that you're a general, there's no reason to leave management affairs to me. It's not hard work for those who can. Kyle shrugged and glanced back at Fury with a smile. You know, I'm not very good at commanding this duty. I was in charge when the Roaring Commando. The soldiers are all arranged by you, let alone the entire 3,000 soldiers this time. Moreover, this is also to cultivate and exercise your psychological endurance earlier. In the future, S.H.I.E.L.D. will worry you even more. The last sentence, Kyle murmured completely softly. What are you talking about? It's very windy. I can't hear you clearly, Fury asked in surprise, but Kyle stretched his waist and waved his hand, urging in a repellent manner, Fury, all the arrangements for the Army Command have been entrusted to you. Hurry up, wait until my military rank surpasses yours, and see how I order you. Fury gritted his teeth, turned and left with a dark face. He was just venting his emotions, and his military rank surpassed Kyle, non-existent. Within a year, the youngest Major General in history who was promoted from recruit to Major General across multiple ladders is no longer enough to show how exaggerated this is. But 3 days ago, the news of this promotion spread in the U.S. General Base. Not only did countless American soldiers camped there not have any objections, they even felt that it should be taken for granted. The American hero who symbolizes strength and conquest, the fighter who oppressed the German army to withdraw from the European frontline battlefield, and the greatest hero who wiped out the Hydra organization in one fell swoop. Only Major, no cards. Major General is normal. It has to be said that the soldiers of the entire American army are Kaichuan. And whoever dares to blackmail, it is estimated that the comrades in the same military camp will turn their faces and deny them. Why does it feel like a spokesperson for war? Kyle touched his chin and yawned slightly towards the sea ahead. There was still some time before the war was prepared, and his body felt much more boring and relaxed. It's better to go back to the ship's control center and look at the strategic map. Thinking this way, Kyle slowly walked away from the deck, but at the corner of the passageway going down the stairs, a petite female military doctor bumped into him unexpectedly head-on. Huh? Kyle frowned slightly. Although his body was slack, his reaction speed as a super soldier was not fake. He cleverly dodged to the side, passing by the military doctor who was about to fall on him, and then stretched out his backhand, grabbing the opponent's back collar. Wow, the female military doctor yelled in panic, and when she realized it, she was picked up by Kyle with her collar like a kitten. Are you okay? Kyle asked aloud, and slowly put the other party on the ground. The female military doctor's face turned pale from fright, and she sat down on the passageway inside the ship with soft legs, shaking her short light red hair, and said timidly and softly, "It's okay, I'm fine, female military doctor?" Kyle then took a slight look at the female military doctor on the ground. She looked to be in her early 16s at most, and her body had not yet fully developed. But it still can't hide the fact that she is a little beauty, with reddish hair, fair skin, delicate face, slender figure, and the white dress of a military doctor under the pitiful expression. It seems that people have an impulse to care. Of course Kyle is not a lolicon, he is not interested in the girl, but under the concentration of attention, the ability card that emerges from the girl makes him very interested. Emergency medical proficiency, ballet proficiency, English proficiency. Well, there's nothing wrong with these ability cards, but there's true mastery in assassination, true mastery in pistol, true mastery in disguise, mastery in close combat, mastery in Soviet secret signs, mastery in psychological tactics. Well, forget about the above, but besides these dozens of green ability cards, the young military doctor also has one of the most important cards, Super Agent, the Super Agent physique above the top agent, the mid-range version of the Super Soldier blue ability card. After genetic modification, the aging speed is greatly delayed, and its immune system and anti-strike ability are enhanced. And obtain the top physical strength, speed, reaction and intelligence of normal human beings, and maintain their fighting state for a long time. Current status, extractable, cannot be combined with super soldier ability. Interesting, Kyle whispered softly, and his eyes lit up slightly as he looked at the girl military doctor on the ground. Interesting, the girl military doctor was taken aback for a moment, and then pitifully and aggrievedly clutched her slender calf, where the white skin was scratched and a little blood was spilling out. She took a deep breath timidly and said, "General Kyle, can I trouble you to take me to the ship's infirmary?" Kyle didn't take the words, but asked instead, "What's your name?" "My name is Shatana," the girl military doctor said weakly. "Shatana," Kyle repeated, nodded quickly with a smile, and stretched out his hand. Just when Shatana thought that Kyle was going to help her up, Kyle waved directly at the passing Navy soldiers not far away. "Come here and send this military doctor to the infirmary." "Yes, General Kyle." The Navy soldier hurried forward obediently, and took Shatana away from the scene. It wasn't until the two disappeared in the corridor of the ship's passage that Kyle's face showed a ray of coldness. Soviet Union, Agent Red Room. Last time, he took away the seriously injured Bucky who fell off the glacier, and it will be fine if he transforms into a winter soldier in the future. Now it's the Three Kingdoms Alliance. Do you still want to do something secretly? In the new week, please recommend votes to support the ranking. In the new chapter, several heroes will appear one after another, and the plot will be more exciting. Chapter 59: The Mission Goal of the Red Room. Huge battleship, in the exclusive office of the commanding officer. "Kyle, I brought you all the documents you asked for the military medical staff." Fury took a stack of bound documents and put them on the desk when he walked into the room. Kyle, who was sitting on the office chair, nodded coldly, took the documents and began to read them one by one. Fury stood in front of the table, looked at Kyle with a puzzled expression, and said wonderingly, "I thought you figured it out, and wanted to arrange the affairs of the major general officer by yourself. Why, now you are doing this to the military doctor on the battleship?" "Take care, I met a pretty interesting guy," Kyle responded casually, narrowing his eyes slightly, but found a personal file he wanted to read among the documents in his hand. On the personal file, a black and white photo of the female military doctor I met just now with a bright smile is printed on it. Shatana Caroline, female, age 16, height 165 centimeters, 43 kilograms. Born in 1928, his home is located at B012, Atlanta, USA. Current family status, single, Both parents are local farm workers. As a student of Shangji Medical and Nursing School, he passed a voluntary application of the school to support the front line in January 1944, and became a member of the military emergency medical staff in February. 16 years old, just became a military doctor this month. Kyle raised his eyebrows, threw the file in his hand on the table, and asked blankly, I'm not yet an adult, and I just became a military doctor this month. Can I directly board a battleship to participate in a large battle? It's not surprising. Fury touched his bald head and replied, during World War II, there were exceptions to everything. The military medical staff was not sufficient enough, and they often carried out publicity from some hospitals or schools to call for volunteers. More than 15 U.S. soldiers were deployed in this battle. Most of them were from the Army, so each warship needs to be equipped with a team of military medical personnel. Kyle didn't speak, and tapped his fingers on the table, as if thinking about something. Fury is also a smart person. His eyes fell on the file, and he said solemnly, is there something wrong with this female medical staff? There is a problem, but you don't have to worry about it. Let me handle it, Kyle said, and then issued a secret order to Fury. I understand. Fury nodded after listening, and left the office room as if ordered. Kyle folded the archives on the table and put them in the drawer, with a sneer on the corner of his mouth. I'd like to see what kind of tricks the Soviet Union sent an untrained agent to play, at this time, in the medical room of the battleship. Little Nana, I heard that you almost ran into Major General Kyle. Hey, really? Isn't Major General Kyle as cold and handsome as in the documentary? Is this the point? Be careful. Don't cause trouble for the general next time. 4 young female nurses in white dresses were discussing actively, and their faces were pink as they talked. After bandaging her slender calf, Shatana sat on the single hospital bed indoors, looked out at the blue sea from the round glass window on the side, and remained silent in a daze. The first plan, the accidental bridge section, was declared a failure. Recalling the scene of the encounter just now, Shatana slightly clenched her small hands, and her bones and joints turned white. Oh my God, is there anyone who treats a pretty girl like a kitten like that? Generally speaking, facing a normal man, shouldn't you reach out to hold him? Could it be that I'm not pretty enough? Shatana subconsciously touched her little face. Ever since she entered the agent's red room, the organization has given her irrigation by all means to achieve her goal. Of course, the temptation of beauty is one of the secret weapons exclusive to female agents. No, you can't deny your outstanding appearance just because of one failure. The main reason for the failure is that the target person is not an ordinary normal man. Shatana thought secretly. After all, the other party was an executioner with tens of thousands of enemy lives in his hands, a war demon in the eyes of the enemy country. In fact, when the organization announced that the target of this test mission was the U.S. Army, Kyle, many senior agents turned pale, for fear that they would be picked to go there. Later, it was Shatana who took the initiative to take over the test task. If there is a reason, it can only be said that she had no choice. To carry out his first mission, not to target Kyle, but to assassinate the leader of the ninja organization, and, compared with the latter, the former task has a higher safety factor for her, a native of the United States. Plan, failed, and we must find another opportunity to contact the target. Just as Shatana was thinking about it, a Navy soldier suddenly rushed into the infirmary in a panic. Maybe Major General Kyle has never been on a boat and is not used to the environment here, and he is feeling a little unwell now. Before the Navy soldier finished speaking, several female military doctors in the medical room raised their hands high and said in unison. He replied, I'll go. Please let me take care of it. Will such a legendary hero who is an all-around man get seasick? Before Shatana could think too much in the future, the Navy soldier said with embarrassment, Major Admiral Kyle said that I met a military doctor named Shatana just now. Just let her go. Who is Shatana? Let me go. As soon as these words came out, Shatana was stunned, and the rest of the female military doctors also focused their envious and jealous eyes on her. The Navy soldier urged, You are Shatana. Hurry up and follow me with a medical kit. Oh, okay. Shatana nodded in response, took a deep breath, and got off the hospital bed with vigor. No matter what, this is the best opportunity to get close to the target. The Navy soldiers led Shatana, who was carrying a medical kit, to the door of the office, and knocked on the door to report, Major General Kyle, I have brought a general doctor over. Let her in. The young man's steady voice came from behind the door. Okay. After the Navy soldier finished speaking, he opened the door and signaled Shatana to go in by himself. Shatana slowly stepped into the door. As soon as she entered the office, the door behind her was closed by the leaving Navy soldiers. She followed her gaze to look forward, and Kyle was sitting on the office chair, with one hand resting on his forehead and closing his eyes. His handsome face was gloomy and uncertain, as if he was unwell and sick. "General Kyle." Shatana walked to the office chair and stopped, calling out tentatively. Kyle opened his eyes, looked at Shatana and said softly, "You're here. When I got off the deck just now, my head became dizzy and I felt a little nauseous. This is a sign of seasickness. Anyone who takes a boat for the first time will feel slightly uncomfortable. You can take some seasickness medicine to relieve the reaction," Shatana said softly, and found a box of pills from the medical box. Carefully he took out 2 pieces and handed them to Kyle. "Then give it a try." Kyle nodded, glanced at the seasickness pill, and then swallowed it together with a cup of warm water. "For all items, as long as you concentrate, there will be accurate item card information in front of you as a result. Even if it is a well-designed poison, Kyle can't fall into it as long as he is prepared." However, what Shatana gave him was indeed just ordinary seasickness pills. Chapter 60. This widow is not so cold. Inside the battleship's office, Shatana didn't know that she was on the verge of death, but looked at Kyle on the office chair with concern, waiting for his next instructions. Seeing this, Kyle secretly smiled. The agents trained by the Soviet Red Room are indeed the top in the world, from super agent potions to the abilities and qualities that agents should have. Don't look at Shatana in front of me as a special agent trainee. Her combat strength is placed on the entire US military base, and few soldiers or officers can beat it single-handedly. In addition, super combat capability is one aspect, and this infiltrating, disguised as a timid and weak American female military doctor, is as simple as drinking water normally. Unfortunately, I met him. Kyle squinted slightly. Shatana's infiltration camouflage can be said to be perfect, but it is nothing under the card-drawing ability. No matter how carefully you plan, no matter how amazing your acting skills are, the bright blue ability card, Super Agent, on the back of your head will undoubtedly expose everything. There was silence in the office for a while, and after Kyle took a few sips of warm water, he waved to Shatana, who was standing dry, and said with a slight frown, "My head is a little dizzy. Do you know how to massage the head and shoulders?" "Give me a massage." Shatana hesitated for a moment, then nodded like a chick picking rice, walked around the desk in small steps, and walked to the back of Kyle's chair. She didn't notice that when she passed the chair, a little cold light appeared in Kyle's slightly open blue eyes. The best time for the assassination has been set up, and then, Shatana's life and death are all in her own hands. Regardless of whether the opponent is a hero in the future, as long as there is a slight signal to launch an assassination attack, Kyle will kill her here without hesitation. This is Kyle's bottom line. To be an enemy of him, he could only lie on the ground and turn into a corpse. "General, you can close your eyes a little, and the massage will be much more comfortable," Shatana whispered, and slowly stretched out a pair of small hands towards the back of Kyle's head. "Okay, use a little force," Kyle responded with a nod, and while closing his eyes, his concentration tightened. The opponent was not carrying a weapon, and his own muscle strength alone was not enough to break his neck. However, just in case, he had already put the venom suit on his body into defensive state, ready for battle. Soon, Shatana's 10 slender fingers landed on the back of Kyle's head, pressing slightly harder, kneading down to the neck, shoulders, and then up to the forehead. Kyle, whose body was a little tense and stiff, suddenly relaxed. What's with this unexpected comfort? It has to be said that Shatana's massage technique is very proficient, which should be one of the majors learned by the agent training disguise, and the girl's fingers are slender and strong. Wait, that doesn't seem to be the point. Aren't you going to make a move? Kyle was puzzled, a little confused. At this critical juncture of the war, the Soviet Red House organization sent a super agent over to lurk. If not for him, then for what? The target person is not him, or the purpose of the mission is not to assassinate him? Thinking about it this way, it is true that although the Soviet Union likes to cause trouble, it would not send agents to assassinate the new Major General, who is an American hero during the Triple Alliance. Under Kyle's doubts, Shatana massaged and kneaded for 10 minutes before stopping, panting slightly and waving her sore fingers. The man's bones and muscles are much denser than imagined, and it really is as stated in the mission issued by the organization, the super soldier ability. Shatana made up her mind, panting behind Kyle's ear, and asked softly, "General Kyle, how do you feel? Are you still dizzy?" Kyle raised his head slightly, closed his eyes and said with enjoyment, "It's much better, that's good, but a large-scale war is about to start right now. It's best to investigate any illnesses in advance." When Shatana said this, she paused, and gave professional advice. In case of emergency, the general had better poke a drop of blood on his finger, and let me take it back to the infirmary for testing situation. "Oh, blood test." Kyle opened his eyes completely at this time, showing such a subtle expression. The secret agent mission, I didn't expect that it was just to get a little of his blood. With a venom suit, even if he suffered a skin trauma, he would not leave his own blood on the previous battlefield. A drop of blood doesn't seem to mean much, but the present is the Marvel world of high technology and biology after all. Who knows what the lunatic scientists in the Soviet Union are going to do with this drop of blood? When the time comes, get him a man-made man or something. Now that he knew the purpose, Kyle didn't have to act with the other party anymore, and said in a cold tone, "Is this your purpose?" "What? The purpose?" Shatana, who was still behind the office chair, was stunned, and said softly, barely maintaining her composure, "General Kyle, what are you talking about? This is just a simple blood test." Kyle threw out a sentence that defeated her last lucky line of defense. "Do you still want to continue pretending?" An agent of the Soviet Red House. Before she finished listening to the words, Shatana's face changed, and her hands suddenly slashed towards the back of Kyle's neck with a knife in her hands, trying to knock him out. "Play with you?" Kyle snorted coldly. His movements reacted more quickly. He raised his hands and grabbed back, and held the girl's untouched palms in his hands. Shatana tried hard to pull her hands away, but found that Kyle's hands were like steel pliers, so imprisoned that she couldn't even move a single finger. Just when she was about to switch to kicking, a crushing force came from her arms, and then her whole body was lifted up and turned 180 degrees over Kyle's head, and slammed hard on the hardwood desk superior. Crack! The desk collapsed and cracked on both sides, and Shatana lay down on the scattered wooden debris and document papers, moaning in pain. Cough cough. Shatana had just coughed and struggled to get up, and under slightly frightened eyes, she saw the handsome young man throwing the general coat aside, revealing the venom battle suit that integrated coldness and killing inside. "Very good, just stand up like this. Let me see my strength as a Soviet super agent." Kyle looked at her indifferently. His muscles were clearly protruding under the black battle suit, and his murderous aura enveloped the entire office like a substance. He kneaded his fist, raised the corner of his mouth slightly, and said coldly, "I hope you can let me warm up my lower body a little before the war comes." Chapter 61 Capture One Soviet Agent. On the corridor inside the battleship, Fury, dressed as a lieutenant officer, hurriedly trotted towards Kyle's office. The female military doctor who was suspected of being an agent of another country had been in the office for a while, and he also wanted to see how the matter was handled. As soon as he arrived outside the closed iron door of the office, Fury vaguely heard the conversation between Kyle and the girl military doctor from the room. "Can't you come over?" "I'm not coming." "Then I'm here." "Don't come here." The short and boring conversation ended, followed by the sound of fierce fighting in the office. Fury was getting close to knock on the door, when something hit the other end of the iron door with a bang, and even the iron door made of fine iron showed a slight bump. "Kyle, are you okay?" Fury resolutely gave up on opening the door, and shouted after wiping off his cold sweat. Kyle's calm and steady voice soon came from the door. "It's okay. Just stay outside the office and don't let other soldiers come in." "Okay." Fury nodded in response, and he didn't worry about whether Kyle in the room was in danger. There's absolutely no need to worry about it. It should be the person Kyle is fighting. In fact, it does. At this time, inside the battleship office, sawdust and paper were scattered all over the floor of the room, full of traces of the raging left after the fierce battle. Kyle, who was not equipped with any equipment other than the venom suit, stood tall and straight in the middle of the office, looking coldly at Shatana, who was half sitting and half lying on the iron gate in front of him. The current Shatana is also completely different from just now. Her small face with a little immature air is full of indifference, her beautiful eyes are full of sharp coldness, and the white military doctor's dress on her body is like a beggar's outfit covering her petite body, the abnormal embarrassment sticking together with sweat and dust. It's like a convenient crushing game. Why, the top agents trained by the Soviet Union have this ability. I haven't tried my best yet, and I'm about to fall, Kyle sneered coldly. Shatana gritted her teeth, resisting the pain of being wounded, and struggled to climb up slowly while holding the iron door. Not bad, Kyle showed a devilish smile. Just now, he used percent of his strength to land on the opponent several times in a row. Ordinary normal people have long been beaten to death, but now Shatana still has the ability to barely fight. The super agent's immune system and ability to resist attacks are not as simple as they say. "I'll let you go first," Kyle spread his hands and said. Shatana didn't hesitate either, knowing that in the territory of other people's army, there was no way to escape, so she had to fight to the death. She lowered her body slightly and rushed forward. When she was within 2 meters of Kyle's body, she reversed her right palm and stretched out a piece of wood that had been hidden all the time to Kyle's eyeballs. Kyle seemed to have known it for a long time. He stretched out his left hand quickly and grabbed the wrist of the right hand holding the sharp wood first. He pinched it hard with 5 fingers, and the girl's wrist was almost broken. Crackling. "Ah, let me go," Shatana yelled in pain, and quickly kicked her left calf towards Kyle's knee. The next moment, her left ankle was also caught halfway by Kyle's other hand, and it was firmly pinched in the palm of her hand. This is completely a trick. Due to the huge gap in fighting skills and physical fitness, Shatana is just a kitten with fangs to Kyle, a cheetah. Captain America Steve was completely abused by Kyle in pure close combat, not to mention that Shatana is less than half of Steve's level of combat power. If Steve is Kyle's younger brother, then Shatana is the younger brother, and there is no chance of winning. Boring. Kyle looked coldly at Shatana, who was immobilized by his imprisoned body at close range, and shook his head in disappointment. He grabbed the opponent's petite body with both hands, bent his left leg up, and hit the girl's soft belly heavily with his knee. This blow was a real full-strength knee strike. Shatana, who was still wanting to resist, rolled her eyes, and sank completely without the ability to fight. Kyle also let go of her hands, and she still collapsed on the ground, twitching and curling up. The short battle quickly came to an end. "Fury, you can come in," Kyle patted the dust on his hands and called. The iron door was quickly opened by Fury, who was acting as the doorman. When he entered the room, he was also shocked when he saw the messy and messy office and the bruised Shatana curled up on the ground. "The Soviet Union is really restless, and sent agents to secretly take my blood," Kyle said blankly. "Then how will she deal with it? Detain her, or hand it over to the superiors at the rear?" Fury asked. "Relevant matters will be kept secret for the time being, and we will talk about it after this battle is over. It is not beneficial to our army to have a stalemate with the Soviet Union now." After Kyle finished speaking, he picked up the general's coat and put it back on his body, glanced at Shatana on the ground, and said, "Send her to the single room of the battleship and lock her up, and send a female military doctor to help deal with the injury. By the way, change into a military-style combat uniform. I will ask her later." Later, Fury stared at Shatana, who is still twitching on the ground in surprise. "I'm afraid she won't be able to recover in a few days?" Kyle shrugged and said, "I didn't kill her. With her physical fitness, she probably woke up in half an hour." Fury shook his head, and seriously gave an after-the-fact evaluation. "The target of the mission is you, and whoever comes here is really miserable. The head is given away. Let's forget about this account before it's settled. When I have a chance in the future, I'll have to take over the Red Room organization," Kyle said coldly. "The experimental abacus hit him, so I'm sorry. The death book will make a note first." An hour later, Shatana gradually woke up in an isolated single room, and just after waking up, the trauma of the beating on her body stimulated a burst of soreness. She looked around calmly, and found that her body was tied to a wooden chair, her hands and feet were tightly bound with ropes, and the tattered white skirt she was wearing had long been replaced by an American-style small green combat uniform. The strong rope on her body is indeed a prison for ordinary people, but for Shatana, it is just a trick to fix her body. With her own flexibility, she can easily break free. But apart from the rope on her body, Shatana could still feel a cold metal round neck tightly wrapped around her neck. "I advise you not to struggle needlessly. The thing on your neck is the electric shock collar that I asked Howard to make a reserve. As long as you want to remove it manually or press the button on the remote control, it will work. The maximum electric shock is enough to make a cow incontinent." A cold and steady voice sounded from the door, and Kyle walked slowly into the detention room while talking. The shock collar was originally prepared by him to deal with a winter soldier in the future, but he didn't expect to use it here first. Successfully captured a Soviet agent. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62 The Black Widow is not a widow. After listening to Kyle's warning words, Shatana bit her lower lip, turned her face away and lowered her head, without any thought of resistance. This is not because of the threat of the electric shock collar on his body, but because of the oppressive force of Kyle's powerful strength. After a personal battle, Shatana, who is proficient in tactical analysis, understands very well that the young man in front of him is undoubtedly standing at the pinnacle of world combat power, and it is an insurmountable mountain. I like talking to smart people. Kyle smiled faintly, closed the door, and sat on the chair on the other side of the table in front of Shatana. Shatana said, like breaking a can, no matter how you deal with me, I won't talk about the Red Room. When it comes to the Red Room, her eyes and small face carry a hint of fear. That's just right. I happen to have no interest in the Red Room organization. Anyway, one day, I will go there and blow it up. Kyle smiled indifferently, tapped his fingers on the table, and said calmly, I am more interested in you, so I will only ask you some non-organized personal questions. While saying this, his thoughts focused on the blue ability card on Shatana, Super Agent. Current status, extractable, cannot be combined with Super Soldier ability. It can be extracted, and it can't be possessed at the same time. Isn't this a contradiction? The first time he saw the card on Shatana, Kyle had such doubts in his heart. However, Shatana is also the only one he has seen so far who has a blue ability card. Super Soldier is a blue special ability card with a rare prefix, and the blue rarity rank also has a one-time draw limitation factor. What happens if you draw an unusable blue ability card? Kyle came here for this experiment. Immediately when he was concentrating, he drew the Super Agent blue ability card. The blue ability card must also be drawn within a range of 1 meter, and the condition must be read continuously for 3 to 10 minutes. Start drawing cards. 1799, 1798, a slightly longer countdown begins. Kyle also just took advantage of this time to start a conversation with Shatana. About my information, the Red Room organization should have given you a detailed explanation, and I won't introduce myself here but you first introduce yourself. Shatana responded coldly, don't you also have my file information? My name is Shatana Caroline. I don't think a Soviet agent would use his real name to infiltrate under a disguise. Kyle smiled slightly. Seeing that Shatana was still indifferent, he slowly took out a small remote control from the pocket of his general's coat, and pondered it with his fingers. This question does not involve the Red Room organization. If you don't even cooperate with the basic questions and answers, why don't you try the electric shock first? Incontinence or something is very disgusting, you devil. Shatana glared at Kyle viciously. Her eyes drifted away from the remote control, and she quickly gritted her teeth and said, is it okay? My real name is Natasha Romanov. Oh? What about the code name of the organization in the Red Room? Kyle continued to ask. Didn't you say that you don't want to ask about the Red Room organization? I've already said my real name, so there's nothing else I can't say about my code name. You bastard. Natasha thought for a long time, and finally spit out a disgusting adjective. She is still just a Soviet Red Room training agent who has been trained for several years. No matter how much she brainwashes and enriches extreme training, she can't cover up her 16-year-old underage girl background simply playing tricks and means. How can you beat Kyle, an old fritter? Natasha pursed her lips dejectedly. Codename, Black Widow. Widow? I didn't expect you to get married so early. It's so pitiful that you don't have a husband yet, Kyle joked. Natasha shook her head in protest. Asshole. The Black Widow is a poisonous spider. Not a widow, I know. Black Widow. Kyle nodded understandingly. He had guessed before, but he didn't expect it to be her. Natasha the Black Widow, one of the veteran heroes of the future Avengers. Although the combat power is at the bottom level, it often plays a key role in certain war situations, and it can be regarded as a slightly famous socialite in the hero level of the Marvel world. Now it is codenamed Black Widow, but in the future, it will also be the veritable Widow of Kaf, a black rose with thorns. Kyle thought for a while, and couldn't help asking, Natasha, why did you join the Red Room organization? That doesn't matter, of course it is to become a top powerhouse. Natasha snorted coldly. She lost her parents in the war since she was a child, and she had long since given up her identity as a weak girl. As far as I know, The Red Room of the Soviet Union will implant virtual memories into new members to brainwash new members for the purpose of loyalty to the organization. Kyle smiled and guided. Do you often feel that your previous memories are broken? I'm not right, or the twists and turns are bizarre? Natasha was silent, not knowing what she was thinking. Think about it for yourself. While the Red Room makes you stronger, it also turns you into a killing weapon that loses yourself. Kyle finished speaking, quietly waiting for the countdown to draw cards. 3, 2, 1, successful draw. After the card drawing countdown ended, an ability card glowing with blue light appeared in the card's space out of thin air. But unlike the previous ability cards, this card seemed to be rejected by the collective ability card, and could not be augmented to the external body, and the card was forced to retreat to the edge of the blank area. Kyle's thoughts entered the card's space, and he reached out to catch the blue ability card for inspection. Super Agent. Current status: cannot be possessed with Super Soldier at the same time. It can be used by others. Warnings given to cards. In the card space, two identical ability cards cannot exist at the same time, except for life boost. Every time an ability card of blue or higher quality is given, it will enter the cooling time of the given card for up to 3 days. Each person can only give one blue or higher quality ability card, and can no longer choose to withdraw it, and can only be forcibly destroyed within a 3-meter range. Can it be given to other people to use? Kyle's heart was shocked, and he accidentally discovered the third card function besides drawing cards and sacrifice cards. Give cards. The ability card that cannot be used by oneself, after being drawn, can be given to others to use. What does this mean? It means that as long as there are people like Natasha with the original blue ability card, endowing the card with the ability can cultivate a group of forces with the same blue ability card within a sufficient time. Kyle looked at Natasha in front of him with bright eyes, making a secret decision for his future power preparation. Natasha can't submit it, but must keep it in her own hands. Chapter 63. If you say that reading cards and sacrificing cards can quickly improve your personal strength, and even become stronger when you are strong, then the third brand new card drawing ability can cover this feature to team force. In this way, after the end of the Second World War, the plan to cultivate family power can be further improved. When Kyle thought of this, the excitement in his heart could not be calmed down for a long time. Even if there was a plan to cultivate power before, there was only a giant ancient dragon Turtle Island as the embryo of the site, and the endowment of drawing cards was truly the foundation and heritage of creating a family. Natasha, who was in a bonded state, noticed that Kyle was looking at her more and more wrongly at this moment. She couldn't help biting her lip and turning her face away. HMPH, men, are all lower body thinking animals, even American hero. I'm not going to end myself here. Natasha quietly looked at the surrounding environment, the cold and narrow inquiry room. She was bound with ropes and collars. I've already said what you're observing. Don't even think about escaping from here. Kyle recovered from the blueprint for the future, looked at Natasha, whose head was spinning around, and said coldly. Natasha's pretty face complained in a low voice with a little reluctance, "It's fine to do that, but can you untie me first, so that everyone can be more comfortable?" Comfortable? What a mess. Kyle glared at her coldly, and then said calmly, "Natasha, is your dream only to become stronger? If I can make you stronger, then do you still want to go back to the Red Room organization? You want to instigate me?" Natasha's eyes fluttered, and she directly refused. "It's not my choice whether to return to the Red Room or not. If I betray the organization, they will also send agents to kill me. If you join my side, you will still be afraid of the Red House organization." Kyle snorted coldly, but fell into deep thought in silence. Now the convincing power of his own words is not high. No matter how strong he is, it is difficult for him to defeat the elite Secret Service organization of a superpower, and although he is a major general of the United States, the human resources in his hands are basically from the country. He has not yet held a whole card that can make Natasha betray the Red Room, so this conversation should be reserved for later. Think about it on your own. I really can't promise much now, but from now on, I can at least guarantee your personal safety. While speaking, Kyle stood up from the chair, pulled out the sodium carbon steel sword he was wearing with his hand on his back, and made a slight slash towards the front. The next moment, the ropes tied around Natasha's waist all snapped and fell to the ground. In the future, one day you will understand that the choice given to you today is a gift that even God cannot bestow. Kyle confidently dropped this sentence, opened the door of the inquiry room, and was about to leave. Natasha hurriedly said, "At least take off the collar on my neck," Stay well, I will have someone bring you meals regularly. Don't even think about escaping from here. Kyle shrugged, walked out of the door, and locked the anti-theft iron door with his backhand. If the other party wants to escape, it is estimated that they can escape by sending an American army back and forth to guard them, but if the other party really wants to get out of the Red Room, then she will acquiesce that she will stay in a state of inescapable detention. This play is also a small psychology. The battleship is about to set sail, and Kyle plans to leave the matter until after this battle to deal with it slowly. Really gone, Natasha, who was left alone in the inquiry room, sat on a chair sullenly, her head slightly tilted, recalling Kyle's suggestion. Betray Hong Fang, join him? No matter how you look at it, this is the worst and worst choice. Natasha scratched her head angrily, and lay down on the table without thinking. On the deck of the battleship, under the scorching sun at noon, thousands of American soldiers in combat uniforms and armed with guns stood at attention in a neat line. Their eyes were all moving forward, focusing on the cruel young man in the general's uniform coat. The anchor has been raised, Navy sailors are in place for each position of the battleship, the captain and deputy captain are ready in the control center room, all combat soldiers are fully equipped. Get ready for battle. After Fury finished reporting, he put down the communicator in his hand, and saluted the young man by the fence at the bow. The departure time is coming soon. Major General Kyle, please give the order. Kyle nodded, looked at the vast and boundless sea, and said in a cold voice, then, set sail and set off. The target is the coast of Normandy. Yes, Fury nodded, and immediately contacted the other side of the communicator. Soon, the battleships took the lead, officially setting sail as the vanguard of the battleships, breaking through the waves and heading straight ahead. At the same time, the other hundreds of warships moored around also set sail, breaking through the waves covering several miles of sea mightily. Except for the turbulent waves at sea, from the sky, thousands of fighter planes are like bees swarming out of their nests, densely occupying the air territory, almost heading in the same direction. This time the Three Kingdoms Allied forces invested more than 200 million soldiers. There are countless weapons and ammunition. One can imagine how tragic the upcoming landing battle will be. Kyle, who was standing at the bow of the battleship, also took off the general coat on his body, completely revealing the black venom suit that was integrated externally. A sodium carbon steel sword is hung on his back. The palm of his right hand and his arm are completely covered by the cold vibrating gold arm guard. The dual energy pistol is placed on the calf side connected to the battle suit, and the new gravity magnet equipment is arranged in the belt. As if fully armed. Fury touched Kyle's side and reminded in a low voice, Kyle, don't rush so hard this time. You are a major general, and you are the commander who the enemy focuses on focusing on fire. Kyle smiled and said, okay, isn't it up to you to handle the rear command of the army I lead? I'm worried. Before he finished speaking, Fury admitted that he had said something wrong, and spread his hands helplessly. Kyle, really wasn't something he should worry about. After all, he has never been an officer on paper, but a real super soldier on the battlefield. Fury explained, after our battleship arrives on the opposite coast, the Allied forces will divide into 5 armies and land on the beach respectively. The battleship and fighters will cooperate with us to suppress the opponent's tanks and fortresses. Occupy all the places, clear the enemy troops, and first completely liberate France occupied by the German army. You just need to give the direction and scope of the attack, Kyle said coldly. Offensive combat is his field of expertise. I don't know much about the realistic and specific beach-grabbing battles. It's enough to be a large-scale battle in a parallel world. Daily Recommendation Ticket CAC. Chapter 64 Form of Venom Suit. France's Gold Coast, one of the 5 key beaches. The sand on the beach on the Gold Coast is very fine, so it shines like gold under the sunlight. With the coconut trees on the beach, it is also a good tourist and leisure attraction. At this time on the Gold Coast, the sun is setting in the west, and only the bright red sunset remains in the sky, indicating that the long night is coming. On the coastline, countless sandbags were built into a fortress line of defense about, meters ashore. Tens of thousands of German soldiers wearing steel helmets stood guard here, only showing a heavy fire machine gun outside. They all held their breath solemnly, their faces were tense, no one spoke, and the only sound on the shore was the sound of the sea wind blowing and the waves crashing on the shore. Like the eve of a storm, calm but introverted and full of murderous intentions. Hasn't our elite tank unit rushed over from the rear? A general-level German officer asked in a low voice to the correspondent next to him. The correspondent quickly responded, "Report, the rear troops said that they were bombed by fighter planes from the enemy forces of the Triple Alliance, and their movements were restricted everywhere, and they could not reach the coastal defense area in time. These damned Allied troops. Keep the notice, stick to the coast defense line, and shoot all the enemy troops who land on the beach no matter what. We have to support the arrival of the rear tank troops." Before the German officer could finish his instructions, he saw the correspondent staring at the sea beyond the sandbags in shock, with paleness and fear on his young face. The German officer immediately raised his head and followed his gaze, only to see the gigantic figures of dozens of warships looming above the darkened sea surface, covering the entire sea area in sight, and the leading battleship was like a steel ship. Monsters direct drive shore beach. Here they come. They are coming. Crack. All of a sudden, countless German soldiers took a deep breath and loaded their weapons and guns on the coastal defense line. The large-scale stall-grabbing battle is officially coming. The first is the long-range artillery fire from the Allied forces. The guns of the battleships and warships are aimed at the shore of the beach. With full firepower, the area near the beach and the sky are brightly illuminated. At this time, in the near waters of the Gold Coast, the battleship first stopped on the sea surface, and the surrounding battleships followed suit, and the depth of the sea was no longer enough for the battleship to travel any further. However, the purpose of investing many battleships is not to destroy the enemy's defense as the main weapon. Instead, it is used as a means of transportation to carry soldiers' combat power while covering large-scale combat soldiers on the beach. As soon as the dozens of warships docked, a steady stream of Allied soldiers went into the sea on the battleships. Through the hundreds of small boats that were put down, they landed and attacked the beach in a mighty manner. As soon as the Allied soldiers landed on the beach of the Gold Coast, all the machine guns of the German defense fortress were activated in an instant, and the beach was turned into a restricted area of life by the firepower of the barrage of bullets. The beach is all red. The battle of landing on the beach has just begun, and it is a war of attrition like ants. Well, where's Kyle? Fury on the battleship deck looked around, only to realize that when he ordered the army to grab the beach, Kyle disappeared. Fry, a cold and steady voice suddenly came from the highest observation deck of the battleship. Following the voice, Fury raised his head and looked up to the edge of the viewing platform, where Kyle in a black suit stood tall and straight. "The command of the rear will be handed over to you." After Kyle finished speaking in a cold voice, he jumped down from the observation deck 50 meters above the deck and nearly, meters above the sea. Under Fury's horrified gaze, Kyle, who jumped from a high place, suddenly stretched out the human-like wings on the back of his black battlesuit, and the whole person fell from the free fall immediately, and quickly glided towards the beach. Venom suit, wing form. This is the form transformation of the ability unlocked by the Venom through the symbiosis with a Blue Eagle. Unfortunately, the growth of the Venom is not enough to fly with the transformed wings, but it is more than enough for high-altitude gliding. Under the cover of the dark night environment, the Venom suit with its own concealment ability can pass through unimpeded like a fish in water. Kyle swooped and glided in the sky, swiftly crossed the shallow sea and the beach full of bullets and rain, and quietly broke into the air 10 meters above the German defense fortress. Indifferently looking down at the dense enemy army group below, Kyle canceled the wing form of the battlesuit and fell down. When he was in the air, he stretched his left hand to his waist and threw a piece of anti-magnet down. The moment the anti-magnetism landed, the gravity field with a radius of 20 meters doubled. The German soldiers in the range suddenly staggered uncomfortably and fell to the ground. At the same time, Kyle also just landed on the ground, rolling on the soft sand to release his strength. Holding the sodium carbon steel sword in his left hand, he stood up like a wild beast, and rushed to the machine gun that was still spraying blue flames. Raising the sword in his hand and dropping it, the German gunman and the machine gun he held in both hands were cut into two evenly in an instant. Enemy, the German soldiers in the gravity field struggled to get up. As soon as they raised their guns, they saw Kyle rushing towards them in the night, bathed in the blood of his comrades, holding a blood-dripping sword in his hand. Dada! Countless bullets landed on Kyle's Venom suit, which was strong enough to prevent ordinary bullets, and all of them were bounced away, while they landed on the vibrating gold arm guard of his right hand covering his head, without even a spark or sound falling. Venom, covering the whole body, Kyle whispered in a low voice. The next moment, the black silk of the Venom quickly covered the face and head above the neck, forming a black hood that was as ferocious as a devil. In this way, the Venom is completely like an integrated battlesuit, covering Kyle's entire body, making him look more like a humanoid demon. Full body coverage is the true fusion form of venom and host symbiosis. The strengths of the two can be integrated without hindrance. Although the strength and speed have not improved much, they can be used more smoothly and perfectly. The reason why Kyle doesn't want to cover his whole body on weekdays is because such a self will indulge in war and killing. Indifferent and ruthless, without any human compassion on the outside or inside. But now, under the siege of the enemy army and the rain of bullets, only when he is fully covered in the venom suit can he exert his combat power to the extreme. Kyle lowered his right arm indifferently, letting the bullets fall on the ferocious hood head-on, and charged into the enemy group with his sword in hand, slashing and sweeping, or blasted the soldiers away with his right fist wearing a vibrating gold arm guard, constantly harvesting the lives of the struggling enemy soldiers. In just 10 seconds, dozens of well-equipped German soldiers turned into broken corpses and fell on the pool of blood within the range of the anti-magnetic gravity increase. The scarlet and viscous blood dyed the whole body of the black battlesuit dark red. Kyle stepped on the bones of many soldiers all the way, and carried out endless mad killings. Chapter 65 The Lone Wolf. At night, the sun has completely subsided into the sea level, and the night is like a black fog covering the urban streets in the French coast. Boom, da da da. The defensive front on the beach at the forefront has long been defeated, and the continuous artillery fire and gunfire continued to cover the entire area within a radius of more than 10 miles. The Allied forces of the three kingdoms concentrated their heads on the attack, while the German soldiers resisted desperately. The two sides fought in chaos. There was continuous exchange of fire from powerful guns at night, and the illuminated ground was full of hell-like bloody scenes. Countless corpses were everywhere, broken helmets, guns with empty magazines, and empty bullet shells scattered all over the place, and the blood dripped and gathered together, really like a rain of blood. At this time, the war is not over yet, it has just begun. Tonight is destined to be a sleepless night full of killings and gunpowder, and it will also be an unprecedented battle that people in major countries will not want to recall in the future. At this time, the edge of the city street. The devil. He's a devil. Retreat, retreat back. Unlike the stalemate between soldiers from both sides in other parts of the war, the battle situation here is completely one-sided. More than a dozen well-armed German soldiers ran back with frightened faces pale. Not far behind them, in the dark interior of the streets and alleys, a tall and strong humanoid monster slowly held a bloody one-handed sword, and followed up step by step. The human-shaped monster seemed to be covered with a layer of dark cuticle, and the perfect muscle outline was presented in an assembly line. If there was no light from the artillery fire, it would blend into the night. Scarlet slender eyes, ferocious fangs, wild body outline, this is the original form covered by Kyle and the venom. In the streets and alleys behind him, more than a dozen corpses of soldiers who had been cut in half lay on the ground, and fresh blood was still spilling out to clean the floor. Grenades. Throw grenades to me, the German officer at the head of the team shouted in horror, and the rest of the soldiers immediately followed suit and threw all the grenades on their bodies back. Boom boom boom. The blasting sound caused by the grenade was connected in a series, completely sealing off the halfway of the street passage, and the surrounding collapsed houses blocked Kyle's figure. Huh? The German officer breathed a sigh of relief, sat on the ground with weak and numb legs, and laughed out of fear. Ha ha ha, that monster is dead. Finally dead, his words came in astonishment, but at an unknown time. A bone-piercing chill came from behind, and the shadow cast by his tall physique enveloped his body. Captain, behind you. The other dozen or so German soldiers all looked behind the officer, as if they had seen the most terrifying thing in their lives, and they couldn't stop trembling backwards. The German officer didn't even have the strength to stand up and even look back. His teeth were chattering with each other, and he said hoarsely, "Shoot, let me continue, shoot, PFFT." The sharp one-handed sword tip fell from the top of the head, directly and easily piercing the entire head of the German officer. Captain, more than a dozen German soldiers roared with tears in their eyes. Their grief and indignation turned into courage. And overcoming their fear, they aimed their guns at the shadow behind the dead German officer's body. The next moment, dense bullets hit the black shadow's bullets and fell to the ground, showing how futile their final counterattack was. Tread. Pulling the one-handed sword away from his head, Kyle faced the dense rain of bullets with his venom battlesuit. With one lunge, he shortened the distance to the enemy by a few meters. He swung horizontally and swiftly, and the soldiers were like wheat harvested in a wheat field. Like falling to the ground one after another. The battle situation in this small area quickly returned to its original silence. Kyle didn't know how many enemy soldiers he had killed in this way. These were meaningless. Indulging in such a killing night atmosphere, his body was still in a high state of excitement. Silently looking at the corpses of the enemy soldiers, Kyle was about to set off to go deeper into the war zone again, when he suddenly saw a scene on the street in the distance from the corner of his eyes, and the steps he had just taken stopped immediately. Less than 100 meters away, there was also a group of about 10 German soldiers engaged in a fierce exchange of fire with an enemy in the street area. The man was still struggling to resist with his gun, but soon he threw away the gun in his hand and rushed towards the group of German soldiers fearlessly. Just like a lone wolf hunting its prey, the man rushed forward facing the bullet, holding a cold weapon like a sharp claw in his hand, and made a gesture of desperately fighting. I don't know whether to call it courageous or stupid, so I rushed to the muzzles of 10 guns with sufficient ammunition without any protection, and the result can be imagined. Kyle saw this scene with cold eyes, and wanted to leave at first, but in the next moment, the reversal of the 1-to-10 battle made him tremble physically and mentally. However, the man not only did not die under the gun, but successfully rushed into the German soldiers, and the sharp claw weapon in his hand quickly harvested the soldiers' lives, blood splashed everywhere, and the speed of killing was faster than him. Almost in the blink of an eye, the 10 German soldiers in the field of vision were dead and fell to the ground. Only the man could be seen standing alone at the scene, and quickly disappeared in the dark. The hood of the Venom suit turned into black silk and fell off, revealing Kyle's handsome face inside. At this moment, his eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. Could it be him? How is this possible? This is the world of Marvel movies, the world of the Avengers. How could that person exist? Without any hesitation, Kyle immediately pedaled and sprinted, and set off to the place over there at a high speed. In a few seconds, Kyle arrived at the scene of the fight just now, and quickly looked around to confirm, but there were only 10 broken corpses lying in a pool of blood on the ground, and the lone wolf-like man could no longer be seen. Kyle checked the deadly wounds on the German soldiers' corpses one by one. Most of them were on the neck and chest. There were 3 claw marks that penetrated into the bones of the German soldiers. Basically, they were killed by a clean blow. He was flustered, unable to calm himself down. Is it really that person? Kyle was lost in thought, and soon seemed to notice something, turned sharply, and looked at the corner of the alley next to the street. In the dark corner of the night, a middle-aged man wearing a Soviet soldier's combat uniform came out indifferently, leaned against the corner of the alley, took out a cigarette and lighter from his pocket, and slowly lit it for himself. He has a head of cool black hair, a beard on his chin covering his cheeks on both sides, a rough and masculine face. The middle-aged uncle took a puff of cigarette enjoying himself, looked coldly at Kyle who was standing next to the dead German soldier, and asked while blowing white smoke, "Who are you, American soldier?" Chapter 66 The Uncle Wolf of Marvel World. If you ask Kyle about his previous life and which hero he likes in the entire Avengers Universe series, maybe he won't be able to answer for a while. But if you ask which character you like in the entire Marvel series, it must be Uncle Wolf. Wolverine. At this moment, looking at the vicissitudes of life, Uncle smoking a cigarette in the corner, Kyle couldn't help but speak, never expecting to meet the man in front of him in this battle. "Who are you?" Uncle Kangsang glanced at him in surprise. Kyle took a deep breath and introduced himself. "My name is Kyle, a Major General Officer of the U.S. military." Major General, with such a high rank, will he appear alone on the battlefield deep behind the enemy? Uncle Vicissitudes looked at Kyle more suspiciously and asked, as if he had never heard the rumors of American heroes, he asked again, "How old are you?" 23. "Let's get to 24. Kyle shrugged and took a step forward. When he fully entered the 3-meter range of Uncle Vicissitudes, the ability card message on the opponent's body was immediately visible. Soviet language proficiency, yoga proficiency, true. Assassination proficiency, true. Rifle proficiency, true. Combat fighting proficiency, true. Ancient Wu fighting proficiency, true. 2 swords genre proficiency. At a glance, it is impossible to count how many white and green cards there are, and the estimated number of green ability cards for fighting skills alone is a terrifying number of hundreds of cards. Even if Kyle keeps collecting in the US military, covering 10,000 plus soldiers and officers, there are only 30 or so. What do more than 100 fighting green ability cards represent? It represents almost mastering most of the fighting skills on the earth. This also indirectly expresses how many cruel fighting experiences the man in front of him has experienced in exchange for his fighting skills. Not only that, Kyle's gaze finally fell on Uncle Vicissitudes, the two ability cards, one dark blue and one light blue, Lone Wolf gene. The gene mutation leads to a mutated physique and temperament like a Lone Wolf blue rare ability card. 3 sharp bone claws can be protruded from the palms between the hands and fingers respectively. The claws are connected with the arm bones, tough and sharp. The human body tends to be wolf-like, and acquires the talent of the wolf. The strength and speed of the wolf increase, the body responds as sharply as a beast, has sharp eyesight, nose and smell, is naturally warlike, and is used to being alone, killing and hunting prey. Due to the innate habit of lone wolves, they are naturally alone and not used to living in groups, so the wild rampage will start killing uncontrollably. Current status, rare blue prefix limited, not drawable. In terms of lethality alone, the physique of a lone wolf is far above that of a super soldier. This is Kyle's analysis and evaluation after reading the Lone Wolf gene, rare blue ability card. His super soldier is based on the overall improvement of physical fitness in all aspects, while the lone wolf gene is biased towards the extreme wildness of wolves. The former is in a stable state, while the latter is more aggressive. It's okay to have such a perverted, lone wolf physique card, but Uncle Vicissitudes still has one, self-healing factor, a self-healing factor that exists in the human body blue ability card. The self-healing factor flows through the whole body with the blood all the time, is attached to the bone marrow and cannot be removed, and even exists in every genetically modified cell of the organism. All self-injuries can be healed naturally and quickly with the help of self-healing factors. Even serious injuries that are life-threatening can be restored within half a day. Although sodium carbon steel can inhibit the self-healing factor, it can only inhibit it, and the injury can still heal within a sufficient time. The self-healing factor will infinitely slow down the aging of the body and prolong life. Current status, can be extracted, and can be possessed at the same time as physical enhancement abilities. Lone Wolf gene, self-healing factor, really Wolverine? If it wasn't for him, who would have such a perverted and extreme physique? Kyle was shocked in his heart, but his face was still as calm as ever. He looked at the Vicissitudes' uncle and said, I have already introduced myself. How about you, uncle? I'm just a soldier in the Soviet Union. I have nothing to introduce. Uncle Kangsang waved his hand and said, throwing the cigarette butt on the ground, and was about to leave alone. He still doesn't quite believe that Kyle is an officer of the Major General of the United States, and even if he is, it has nothing to do with him. Wait a minute, Kyle asked to stay, but Uncle Vicissitudes directly accelerated his pace and left to the end of the street. Kyle squinted his eyes, and also set off to follow behind at a faster speed. I don't want to miss it in vain. There are no mutants in this world. This is what he learned at the training base before, but now he meets a man suspected of Wolverine. How can this not surprise him? It's really annoying. Uncle Vicissitudes ran, glanced back at Kyle who was following closely, and couldn't help speeding up his pace, and the speed soon surpassed the running speed of ordinary people. But soon, he found that Kyle was still following closely behind him, as if he couldn't get rid of it no matter what. What on earth do you want? Do you want me to do something to you? Uncle Kangsang stopped, turned his head and said coldly. Just you? Don't you have comrades, or brothers, etc. on the battlefield? Kyle looked around for confirmation. He hadn't seen anyone else until now. If the Wolverine in front of him is really the one he knows, where's the other's big brother, the saber-toothed tiger? Uncle Vicissitudes snorted coldly. No comrade in arms can match me. Brother? I have never had any brothers. No brother? Kyle frowned, and it didn't look like the other party was talking nonsense. He was really an uncle like a lone wolf. Kyle thought for a while, then put his hand into the pouch with the energy pistol on the side of his little feet, and just when the vicissitudes of life became vigilant, he subtly materialized a pack of cigarettes and threw it over there. Look at your cigarettes. When it's over, I'll give you a pack. Uncle Vicissitudes quickly took the cigarette, glanced at the cover of the box, nodded slightly satisfied. Medi brand, it's not bad. He looked at Kyle again, his face softened a little. Tell me, what do you want to do with me? You are very similar to one of my former friends. Please tell me your name. After I know it, I will not follow you, Kyle said urgently. If you're an American, you can't have seen me. I've never been to America, Uncle Vicissitudes said. Turned and paced away, waved back and said, my name is Logan Stell, live well go, see you after the battle. His lone wolf figure soon disappeared into the long night of the war-zone streets, never to be seen again. Logan Stella, even the last name is different, Kyle, who was standing there, muttered to himself, his eyes full of complex meanings. He now understands that the other party is not the well-known Wolverine, but a similar person in this Marvel parallel world. Similar appearance, ability, experience, but not that person. Chapter 67: The Confrontation with Logan. It was gradually dawning, and when the first sun shone from the sky of the Gold Coast, the nightmarish night in the fringe cities of France gradually dissipated. At this time, the inward area of the Gold Coast was completely reduced to a dilapidated scene after the baptism of war. The rotting corpses, gun shell casings, bloodstains, and scorched earth and gunpowder smoke that can be seen everywhere all cover up the area of more than 10 miles as an abandoned disaster place. Countless corpses of soldiers were piled up like hills and incinerated, and the air was filled with foul-smelling black smoke, which made people sick. After one night, the large-scale battle of landing on the beach, which lasted more than 10 hours, was able to have a slight respite. The German troops on the 5 beach fronts and the French fringe towns have basically been cleared. Of course, the forced beachhead operations of the Allied forces of the 3 kingdoms also suffered heavy casualties, but there were still more soldiers from the Allied forces in the rear carrying them to land, supplementing the new blood of the troops that continued to fight, so it seemed that the military strength did not decrease but increased. This is the first day of the battle. The Triple Allied forces have won a disastrous victory. In the future, they will continue to step up the pace of combat. First, they will completely invade France and clear the German soldiers to liberate the territory, and then break into the German border. Early in the morning, most of the soldiers of the 3 kingdoms' Allied forces rested in place and replaced with new troops to attack and defend. Fury, whose lieutenant's uniform was covered in blood and stains, was busy walking around. He had just put down his rifles and weapons, and the troops led by the command post were receiving supplies to rest. On the one hand, he had just completed his command post at the major general level, and on the other hand, he asked the correspondent soldier for news about Kyle. Really a job, with 3 minds. What, you mean Major General Kyle? He seems to have been in the frontline combat area last night. I saw it last night too. Major General Kyle is so strong that he directly annihilated the German troops blocked by one of our combat teams. Yeah, he killed a few soldiers with every step. I don't know how many German soldiers encountered him, and they all turned and fled shouting at the devil. His speed is too fast. I only saw a figure passing by, and I couldn't catch up with him anymore. Furulian asked American soldiers in different units, and they all said such words of admiration and praise, but they didn't get half of the specific whereabouts. But knowing that Kyle is fine and has been active in the front line for assault operations, Fury is also relieved. Although he believes in Kyle's strength, he still inevitably worries about his safety. This is probably the friendship of being a true comrade in arms. At this time, the junction of the edge of the French territory and the inner city is the current frontline combat area. The troops of the Allied forces of the 3 kingdoms who attacked here are still very few, and the streets of the small city can't see half of the German soldiers, and it is as quiet as an empty city. The sound of a lighter rang out in one place. After the butt of the cigarette was lit, the owner took a few puffs and spit out a large cloud of white mist. Logan was sitting alone on the roof of the 3rd floor of an abandoned building, smoking a stuffy cigarette with his head buried in a cigarette. There were 2 German-style rifles under his feet. They seemed to have been picked up or replaced, and he didn't have the time to maintain them. For him, guns are only used to cover up that he is an ordinary veteran. When it comes to a real life and death battle, only the sharp claws hidden in his hands are more reliable. However, after living for more than half a century, there are countless life and death junctures, but they still survived alone like a curse, like a lone wolf who is unwilling but submits to fate. After taking the last puff, Logan threw the cigarette on the ground and stamped it out. He fumbled for a sharp leather saber in his pocket, and then took off his Soviet combat uniform jacket, revealing a lean and strong body inside. Not even a scar. As usual, Logan kept stabbing his body with his saber with a calm face, and the bullets left in his body were picked out by the tip of the knife, and rolled down on the balcony on the roof covered with blood. Within 5 seconds, the bullet hole from which the bullet was ejected healed itself at a speed visible to the naked eye. Is this the main reason why you like to fight alone and say that no comrades in arms can match you? A calm and powerful young male voice suddenly came from the building behind. Logan stood up abruptly, holding a saber in his hand and looking at the source of the sound with ferocious eyes, only to see a young man in black combat uniform standing on the top floor of another building. "Are you following me?" Logan asked coldly, with the cold killing intent in his eyes. "It's not counting as stalking. It's just killing the enemy all the way here and seeing you by chance." Kyle shrugged and said slowly, "You don't have to be so hostile to me. It's the Confederates now, and we're the same kind of people." While saying this, under Logan's suspicious eyes, Kyle jumped forward with a short acceleration, and with a jumping force 4 times that of ordinary people, he easily crossed a high-altitude distance of a road and landed on Logan's place on the roof of the building. Logan frowned and remained silent for a moment before commenting, "Your physique is not a normal human being either, otherwise, how could you become a major general of the US military at such a young age?" Kyle said with a smile. He didn't tell the truth. Although he was not a close follower, he followed the corpses of enemy soldiers killed by the claw marks all the way. Perseverance in catching up is not because the opponent is Wolverine in the Avengers world. In fact, it doesn't matter if the opponent is Wolverine or not. The important thing is that he has the self-healing factor ability that Kyle dreams of getting, and there are an extra 70 green cards of fighting skills. Super soldiers, plus the self-healing factor, and hundreds of fighting green cards, will allow Kyle to perfectly reach the ideal peak combat power level of human beings. Who on earth sent you here? A 5-star general in the United States? Or some scientific staff in some research laboratories? Logan coldly guarded against Kyle approaching, clenched his fists with both hands, and 3 sharp bone claws came from the end of the fist sticks out ferociously. "I said, I have no malice." Kyle spread his hands, but just a step forward. Logan had fully stretched out his bones and sharp claws, and confronted him at a distance of 5 meters. Perhaps it was caused by too many unbearable experiences, and the defensive psychology of the man in front of him was too extreme. Kyle frowned slightly, looking at Logan, who entered the combat state like a lone wolf. He didn't know how to choose for a while. If you want to draw the blue ability card, you must enter within 1 meter range and read it continuously for half an hour. Originally, Kyle wanted to show his goodwill and take off Logan's defenses. As a comrade in arms, he entered within 1 meter of him and tried to read it by chance. Now it seems that it is too difficult to negotiate with Logan in this state. If the negotiation fails, then the only option is to try and fight. This is the last forced choice. Kyle knew very well that if he wanted to defeat Logan with his current self, he had to bet on his mortal consciousness and the preparation to use up all his cards for the battle. Thanks to BOSOS for tipping 50,000 starting coins. This at least proves that some people still like to read my book. By the way, I slapped some trolls in the face, and on the day it goes on the shelf, I will add 5 more chapters for Dada alone. The rewards of other book friends will also be accumulated and counted, and all CACs will be paid off within 3 days of being on the shelves. Forgive me for the inconvenience of adding new books. Currently predicted launch time, Mid-Autumn Festival or around October, Saint currently arrears in total chapters, 7 chapters. Chapter 68 Kyle vs. Logan. At dawn, on the roof of the rooftop, a young man in a black combat uniform and a vicissitudes uncle with a strong upper body bear, the two faced each other at a distance of 5 meters. Needless to say, Kyle, with a rank of Major General piled up with the bones of German soldiers, a war hero who symbolizes strength and conquest, a meat grinder on the battlefield, and a demon butcher. Logan, the Wolverine in this world, is a lone wolf who has been experiencing encounters and partings all his life. Since he obtained the lone wolf gene and self-healing factor through genetic mutation, he is doomed to experience the chaos of wars in different eras. When these two people with killing aura confronted each other, even the air on the top floor of the building was filled with a faint smell of blood and killing. If you want to extract the self-healing factor card, do you really have to go this far? Kyle clenched his fists tightly, and every muscle in his body was tense. Facing a powerful enemy like Wolverine, he didn't know whether to feel fear or excitement in his heart. He held the slightly protruding hilt with his left hand behind his back, and pulled a sharp and slender sodium carbon steel sword out of the sheath. In any case, this opportunity must not be missed. Although it would be safer to arrange troops to help capture Logan after the battle is over, the opponent is likely to leave the battlefield ahead of time and look for opportunities in the world. Other places remain anonymous. There are ability cards that you can't meet but can't find in front of you. There is no reason to retreat timidly because you are afraid of the risk of battle. Thinking of this, Kyle's eyes became firmer and brighter than ever before. His left hand tightly held the one-handed sword in his hand, and his right hand wearing the vibrating gold arm guard also clenched into a fist. Gilulu, the venom was also expressing joy. Without Kyle's reminder, it differentiated and derived countless black threads from the logo on the chest of the battlesuit, and turned into a black hood to cover Kyle's face. "Come on," Logan growled, with both hands stretching the wolf-shaped sharp claws in front of his body. The hair on his body was about to explode and stand on end. The natural sensitivity of the beast made him know that the young man in front of him was very dangerous. Even in half a century, there were only one or two such strong enemies. Tread. Almost at the same time, the two burst into each other's face and rushed towards each other. They are both good at offensive combat, so it makes no sense to give each other the opportunity. The distance of 5 meters, but in the blink of an eye, the two figures collided extremely quickly and fiercely. Logan's sharp claws collided with a vibrating gold arm guard on Kyle's right arm first, and the wolf-shaped bone claws suffered a little loss of power. The surprise in Logan's eyes flashed, and he quickly flipped his claws with superb skills, rubbing the surface of the vibrating gold arm guard and slashing towards Kyle's body. Kyle reacted quickly to block with his sword, dangerously intercepting the 3 sharp claws protruding towards his chest. Then, the sodium carbon steel sword and the wolf-shaped sharp claws collided continuously in the air, making a series of crisp and sharp sounds. The two fought more and more fiercely, and the sweat was pouring out. And the roof floor was scratched with slender sword marks and claw marks from time to time. It stands to reason that with Logan's hundreds of fighting skills, Kyle's comprehensively improved super soldier physique alone is not enough to make up the gap, and he will soon fall into a disadvantage. But by virtue of the increase in physical quality covered by the venom suit, coupled with the use of vibrating gold arm guards to restrain the aggressive claws, the fierce and brutal battle situation was slowed down into a long-term stalemate. This is what Kyle wants to see. It should be said that it is fortunate that Logan's claws and body bone in this world stage have not yet fused with the adamantium metal, otherwise the equipment with vibrating gold arm guards would not be worth the slightest bit. And at this time, the restriction within half a meter, not to mention 1 meter in combat, has been met. Kyle held his breath and devoted himself to the fighting game with Logan. On the other hand, a little thought began to foul on the opponent's ability card. He is currently considering drawing the blue ability card that is not a self-healing factor, and keeping the red time for half an hour within 1 meter is completely impossible in this battle, so he can only start with the ability card that can gradually make up for the difference in skills. Fighting green rare ability card start. True mastery in fighting and fighting. Perfect mastery of extremely powerful fighting skills. Green rare ability card. True ancient Wu fighting proficiency. Perfectly master the fighting skills of the ancient and primitive nature. Green rare ability card. It only takes 3 minutes to read each card, and only the fighting skills ability card with the prefix of green rare can make the current Kyle obviously feel the improvement of his own skills. Tat tat tat, Thursday Chi. On the roof of the building, Kyle and Logan were entangled in a desperate fight. Every move of sword and claw might kill the other party, but they were all resolved by the other party with exquisite skills. This is the master of fighting skills, who will fight when they see each move, and integrate fighting into the body to launch an attack. Coupled with the fact that the physique of the two of them surpassed that of ordinary people, the two figures kept fighting back and forth under the flying dust, so that the roof of the building had a tendency to collapse. After such a battle, it lasted more than 10 minutes. When both sides start to get tired, it is also the easiest time to tell the winner. 3 sharp claws whizzed through the air, spattered a little blood, and forcefully forced a black figure back a few steps. Logan's face was flushed, his eyes were full of killing, and the wolf-shaped claws stretched out by his hands were covered with scarlet blood. Directly opposite him, Kyle was panting quickly and clutching his chest with his right palm, where even the venom suit was torn apart smoothly, revealing 3 deep claw scars. "I'm sorry, although you are an ally, but you know the secrets about me. You must die here." Logan looked at the tired and injured Kyle indifferently, and his rapid breathing unexpectedly started to calm down. The self-healing factor is really missing here. Kyle shook his head helplessly, and he had expected this situation a long time ago. During this period of combat, the skills did make up for a little by drawing cards. But the protracted battle with the lone wolf gene and the self-healing factor of Logan, even the super soldier's super endurance can't bear it. "It's over," Logan said, blood dripping from wolf-shaped sharp claws, walking forward step by step indifferently. "Is it over? Then try." Kyle took a deep breath, and regardless of the serious injuries on his body, he took the initiative to rush towards Logan with his sword, as if making the last stubborn resistance. Before the battle, He had rehearsed this battle dozens of times in his mind, and he was very clear that he had the most critical trump card, the only trump card that could defeat Logan with infinite self-healing ability. It is the sodium carbon steel sword in the left hand that can inhibit the self-healing factor. In the 10 minutes of fierce fighting just now, Kyle's sodium carbon steel sword was always used to block the sharp claws. Instead, he used the right hand of the vibrating gold arm guard to attack, and did not take the initiative to leave Logan with the sodium carbon steel sword. Let him notice the next trace of trauma, just for this moment. The final blow to decide the outcome. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69. On the roof of the rooftop, Kyle, who was wounded in the chest, held a one-handed sword in his left hand and rushed straight into Logan's arms. In anyone's eyes, it was the last fight. Logan stared ahead indifferently, as if waiting for the prey to come to his door. Relying on his own lone wolf physique and self-healing ability, he has driven the enemy into desperation in this way countless times in the past few decades. Lone wolf likes that when encountering a powerful prey, it is not to call for more companions to besiege, but to consume the opponent's physical strength with tenacious will and means alone, and then further kill the weak prey. Compared to attacking, he has hundreds of fighting skills and wolf-shaped claws. Compared with defense and physical strength, he has a strong beast physique and self-healing factor. In Logan's view, from the moment Kyle made a move, he was already doomed to the next death, because the one who fought and killed him was not a mere human being, but a lonely beast that had already been scarred. Tread. Seeing Kyle rushing forward, Logan, who had been standing still all this time, suddenly moved, and his sharp claws came out swiftly and forcefully, but in the blink of an eye, he stabbed at his defenseless chest. Kyle narrowed his eyes slightly, as if he didn't notice the sharp claws at all, and slammed forward regardless. PFFT. A pair of sharp claws were completely submerged halfway through the cross mark of the venom suit, and Kyle's sprinting stopped abruptly, but the moment before his own movement completely stopped, he exhausted all the remaining strength in his body and poured it into his left hand. Send the tightly held one-handed sword into Logan's chest. Laugh. The sodium carbon steel sword was smooth and unimpeded, just piercing Logan's chest, and a slight tip of the sword protruded from the back with blood. Exchanging injury for injury, you are really cruel to yourself. Logan was stunned for a while, never thinking that other than himself, there would be such a suicidal fighting method. Thank you for the compliment. If you don't be cruel to yourself, how could you defeat a powerful enemy like you? Kyle smiled, with dark red blood spilling from the corner of his mouth. His left palm was still on the hilt of the one-handed sword, and he pushed it forward lightly, and the two people who were locked together retreated and separated, accompanied by blood from their bodies. Cough cough. Kyle coughed up blood with a pale face, and sat down on the floor. Just now, the 6 sharp claws had pierced the lungs and the body, and the venom was anxiously stretching the black silk to repair the battlesuit, trying to block the serious wound, but he couldn't stop the blood gushing out. Logan lay back on the ground directly. The sodium carbon steel sword was completely submerged in his chest, only the delicate cross hilt was exposed. It looked as if he had been nailed to the floor by the sword. It is a lose-lose. How should I put it? You are one of the toughest opponents I have ever met. Logan kept panting, and then changed his words. If you bring age, there is no one, you two. To be honest, I really don't want to fight a beast like you. Kyle sat on the ground and responded weakly. This is the most difficult and most seriously injured battle he has encountered since his rebirth. The battle with Steve was only a duel of friendship. And this fight to the death with Logan was a strong duel that put one's life on the line. It's a pity. You won the battle, but I am the one who survived in the end, Logan said as if telling the truth, retracted his wolf-shaped claws, and reached out to pull out the one-handed sword on his chest. But soon, his face changed slightly, and he found that he couldn't raise his strength, and his usual quick self-healing didn't fully heal the serious chest injury. Kyle said softly, "Give up. The sword is made of sodium carbon steel, which is specially designed to restrain the self-healing factor." Really? No wonder. It turns out that you have planned this for a long time. It seems that I am not wronged. Upon hearing this, Logan sighed thoughtfully, let go of his hands as if appointed, and lay down on the ground with a little relief. Can I ask, my next fate? Will you take me back to the army base to be imprisoned, or send me to various research laboratories for experiments, or kill me on the spot, Logan whispered hoarsely, as if he was used to the cruel and inhuman treatment in his mouth. I won't do that. After all, we didn't have to reach this step. Kyle stood up with difficulty, and walked slowly towards Logan. With his current physical injury, he must get the self-healing factor card in his hand as soon as possible. In fact, the purpose of fighting Logan is only to draw ability cards if you have negotiated well before, then everyone can find a place to sit down, have a glass of wine and chat. This is one thought of heaven and one thought of hell, a simple choice turned into a life and death confrontation in an instant. Just when Kyle was about to get close to Logan on the ground, he suddenly turned his head sideways as if he felt it, and cast his sharp eyes on a corner of the roof, and his pupils could not help shrinking slightly. At some point, there was another burly and tall bystander on the roof of the building where the two were fighting to the death. The man was a middle-aged man, wearing a large German military uniform, with a rough and domineering face, and a 2-meter-tall stature. He looked like a fierce tiger about to kill. On weekdays, with the keenness of Kyle or Logan, they would have noticed that someone was approaching, but because they were seriously involved in the fierce battle, they just didn't notice that someone came to the roof quietly. The big man seemed to know Logan on the ground, and said calmly and indifferently, "Logan, I didn't expect you to fall to this level so quickly. I am really disappointed." "It's you, Logan," who was lying on the ground and gave up resisting, immediately widened his eyes when he heard the voice, staring at the big man with deep hatred. "In this way, I can easily take your life." The big man smiled ferociously, and the 5 fingers of his outstretched hands had sharp and tough nails. Saber-toothed tiger. Kyle was a little confused for a moment, looked at the big man, then at Logan, and couldn't help asking Logan, "Didn't you say that you have no brothers, brother?" "He is the enemy of my parents, my lover, and my son," Logan roared. If he hadn't been seriously injured, he might stand up and fight the saber-toothed tiger desperately. "Both and each other. I joined the German army for this day. I just didn't expect it to come so soon and so suddenly," the saber-toothed tiger grinned, ignoring Kyle, who was standing seriously injured, and kept rubbing his sharp claws, and walked to the ground to try Logan struggling to draw his sword. In this world, even though they are not brothers anymore, are they still enemies for life? Kyle, who was on the sidelines, quickly understood, and his face quickly turned cold. The self-healing factor card on Logan hadn't been drawn yet, so how could he be killed by the saber-toothed tiger that suddenly appeared? It seems that it is inevitable to use the whole cards that should be revealed. Kyle sighed secretly, and whistled to the sky, and the saber-toothed tiger looked here in surprise. In his eyes, both of them were seriously injured and on the verge of death, without any threat. The saber-toothed tiger said in a deep voice, "What do you want to do? After I finish Logan, I will naturally send you to hell with me." The corpses of American heroes should be very valuable in Germany. Kyle's eyes were cold, and even though he was seriously injured, he still stood upright as before, and directly returned 3 words to the saber-toothed tiger. "Think too much? Want to take advantage of him? How can it be so simple?" Chapter 70. The aggrieved saber-toothed tiger. "Think too much?" Kyle's tone was cold with a hint of sarcasm, which made saber-toothed tiger's face blacken on the spot, and the already fiery temper caused the veins on his forehead to stand out one after another. His voice was deep and cold. "When I kill Logan first, I will use my sharp claws to make a hole in your stomach, pull out all your intestines, and hang them on this rooftop to let blood out." Saying that, the saber-toothed tiger's ferocious gaze fell back on Logan on the ground, and with a low growl, he swooped over, wanting to take the lead in dealing with this enemy. Kyle watched coldly. The serious injury he suffered was not enough for him to stop the other party's behavior, but he had already called for help in advance. Seeing the saber-toothed tiger leaping forward, and when the claws were about to fall on Logan's neck, a huge animal shadow fell from the sky carrying a hurricane, and the wings that blocked the sun fluttered swiftly and powerfully, throwing the saber-toothed tiger that was still jumping in midair slap hard and fly back. The saber-toothed tiger, as tall as a brown bear, flew off the roof of the 3rd floor before it realized what was going on, and fell down the stairs as it rubbed against the parapet. "Want to snatch food from my mouth? Regardless of whether you are a saber-toothed tiger or polar bear, just leave me alone," Kyle sneered, looking at the blue eagle hovering a few meters above the roof of the building. Lan Ying was nodding his head this way, as if he was also worried about his safety. "I'm fine," Kyle said weakly. His face changed slightly, but it was the crackling sound of sharp claws climbing the wall from downstairs. On the third floor, the height is less than 10 meters. It is really impossible to injure a saber-toothed tiger that is stronger than Logan Lone Wolf's genetic physique. Quick, take him away first. Kyle waved his left hand lightly and decisively issued instructions to the nearby blue eagle. Chirp! The blue eagle screamed softly and swooped down obediently. The eagle's claws grabbed Logan, who was seriously injured and unable to move on the ground. Just when it wanted to take Kyle with it, the saber-toothed tiger climbed up the wall on the side of the building again, roaring and pounced on the low-flying blue eagle with its sharp claws. Chirp! The blue eagle let out a mournful cry when it was wounded, and a dozen bloody blue feathers fell from its body. It flapped its wings and quickly raised its height, and quickly flew away from the rooftop with Logan. Damn it! The saber-toothed tiger's eyes were wide open, and he cursed angrily at the blue sky where the blue eagle was far away. Then he realized something and looked at Kyle, who was still staying in the middle of the balcony, and said in a hoarse voice, "That huge bird, did the beast obey your orders? Let it come back and give Logan to me, and I can consider letting you go." Kyle smiled faintly. Under the heavy wounds, the floor under his feet had been pooled by his own blood, and the vitality of his body was constantly declining. He still slowly returned 3 words to the saber-toothed tiger. "Think too much. He has always been the only one who has the initiative to find someone to negotiate terms, and he has never experienced such things as being threatened." "Ahaha. Interesting. Are you planning to sacrifice yourself by staying?" The saber-toothed tiger smiled instead of anger. And the claw nail stretched out from its left hand touched the parapet of the roof, easily tearing apart the masonry and dust, leaving 5 smooth claw marks. "I've heard about it a long time ago in Germany. American Emperor Kyle, who has the code name of killing gods and demons in the army, is one of the #1 targets of the German military in the war." When the saber-toothed tiger said this, his eyes were reddish and full of ferocity. He stared straight at Kyle and said coldly, "I don't know if a war hero will wail weakly like a woman when he is dying." "Sorry, you really think too much," Kyle said boringly, without a trace of panic on his face. He unhurriedly spread out his right hand, and in the palm wrapped in vibrating metal, lay a green bean quietly. No matter how you look at it from the outside, it is just an ordinary mung bean, but it is full of green vitality, and you can vaguely feel the vigorous vitality and mysterious magic inside. This is one of the life-saving hole cards in the card space. Kyle glanced at the mung bean with a little regret, turned his right palm slightly, and sent the bean into his mouth that was still overflowing with blood. "Well, poison? Is it some kind of stimulant?" Seeing this scene, the saber-toothed tiger was stunned with a broad and rough face, and a bad premonition flooded from the bottom of his heart under the natural keen sense of the beast. No matter what the bean is, you can't let the other party eat it. The saber-toothed tiger made a judgment, and immediately rushed towards Kyle, like a tiger hunting prey, pounced with its claws and nails. Gabba gabba, Kyle recklessly bit the beans in his mouth and swallowed them together with the smelly blood. Looking at the sharp claws getting closer and closer in front of him, he seemed to be waiting for something. Plop, plop, plop. In Kyle's originally seriously injured and weak body, the exhausted and fragile heart suddenly let out a strong and powerful heartbeat, and a mysterious force swam through his body in an instant like a spring. In the next moment, the recovery effect far surpassed self-healing, and within the blink of an eye, the claw marks that showed deep bones, and the wounds that hurt the lungs and internal organs of the body all healed up as before. Living and dead people are living bones. Even if they are seriously injured and dying, one can restore their bodies to their peak state. This is the magical effect of the rare blue item card, Xiandao. Power. Come back. Kyle opened his eyes wide, and his blue eyes lit up. He looked at the saber-toothed tiger rushing towards him, quickly raised his firmly held right hand, and punched it without admitting cowardice. Boom. The right fist of the vibrating gold arm guard, against the tiger-shaped claw nails. The saber-toothed tiger was completely stunned. Unexpectedly, Kyle, who seemed to be seriously injured and on the verge of death, recovered in a blink of an eye, still at his peak state. What's more terrible is that his most powerful sharp claw hit the arm guard made of vibrating gold, and he was caught off guard and was completely unloaded. "Go away," Kyle sneered, and without giving a chance, he raised his left foot quickly, and his raised knee slammed into the saber-toothed tiger's abdomen, and once again knocked the opponent away like a large rubber ball. The saber-toothed tiger shattered the parapet of the roof, and once again aggrieved rolled and fell from the roof of the 3rd floor, causing billows of dust. When he got up with a low growl, he looked up and saw that Kyle was standing tall and straight on the parapet on the side of the roof, looking down coldly. "Are you sure you want to continue fighting with me?" Kyle said sarcastically. The saber-toothed tiger clenched his fists with both hands. His face was livid with pent-up anger. He turned around and left quickly without even responding. He thought he was slightly stronger than Logan, but even Logan was defeated by the opponent. We weighed each other's strengths again and again, and found that their chances of winning were basically zero. The main reason is that the other party is too weird and mysterious, with giant birds and beasts, mysterious beings, and special equipment, and his physique is not much inferior to him. This kind of pervert, no wonder the German army can't do anything about him. "Logan, I'll take your life later." The saber-toothed tiger gritted its teeth and quickly disappeared between the streets of the city. Chapter 71 The saber-toothed tiger must die. Kyle stood alone on the rooftop of the already dilapidated building after several fierce battles within the field of vision. The burly back of the saber-toothed tiger moved away in embarrassment, and disappeared after entering the corner of the street. He has no intention of continuing to pursue, and persuading him with such strength is the best result. The saber-toothed tiger is far superior to Logan in terms of physique and strength, but also because of this, the speed is a bit clumsy, and the fighting skills are far less rich and solid than Logan. Therefore, the vibrating gold arm guard's restraint effect on him is even more obvious. But that's all. The sodium carbon steel sword is still inserted into Logan's body that Lan Ying took away without the confidence and means to kill the saber-toothed tiger. Kyle has no desire to continue. After all, what is more important now is to get the self-healing factor card on Logan first, so as to avoid any unexpected changes. Thinking of this, Kyle didn't continue to stay where he was. The black figure flickered slightly, and quickly left from the rooftop, sensing the location of the Blue Eagle and heading quickly 3 miles away from the small town, in the birch forest in the outskirts of the mountains. It was like people screaming, and the sound of howling wild animals resounded through the forest, startling countless birds that had not been disturbed by the smoke of war. Under the forest where a giant eagle beast hovered at low altitude, Logan kept growling in pain on the ground, and the rolling grass was painted bright red. A one-handed sword on the side was inserted into the trunk of the tree with sticky blood stains. Apparently it had just been forcibly pulled out. It's just that the wound caused by the sodium carbon steel sword will still inhibit the vitality of the self-healing factor, so that the fatal wound on Logan's chest cannot be healed in time. If it was an ordinary human being, he would have died countless times before the sword was drawn from his chest. Only Logan, relying on his tenacious will, was able to barely survive the excessive blood loss. Shhhhhhh. A black figure quickly passed through the forest, and the army boots smashed the fallen leaves all the way to stop in this area. The Blue Eagle hovering at low altitude saw the approaching person, and screamed joyfully, flapping its wounded wings as if it had completed its mission, flying again to the blue sky where the sun shines. "You're here. Where's that man?" Logan raised his head vigorously, staring closely at the cruel young man who had arrived in front of him, clutching his chest and struggling to get up from the grass. His strong body was wet with sweat and blood, extremely tragic. "I was forced to retreat," Kyle responded calmly, looking at the seriously injured Logan indifferently. Between the two, it can be said that there is no grievance or enmity. In a way, he is still a comrade in arms of the Confederate Army. It's just that Logan has important cards that he wants to draw, the natural law of the weak and the strong, nothing more. Kyle has never been a kind and good person. Under the absolute desire to become stronger, even if he is given a chance to do it all over again, he will still bet his life against the strong Logan for a self-healing factor ability card deathmatch. Although he has principles, bottom lines and emotions, they are only limited to those who stand on his own side, and do not include anyone on the opposite side. In the birch forest, Kyle glanced slightly, took a few steps forward, pulled the sodium carbon steel sword from the blood-stained tree trunk, and walked towards Logan holding it in his hand again. "Are you going to kill me here?" Logan's tone was weak and bitter, holding a white birch tree beside him. His eyes were full of unwillingness. He was not willing to die like this, die before the saber-toothed tiger. "I never said I would kill you. But now that it's at this point, it's too late to negotiate. Even if I don't want to kill you, I can't let you go," Kyle stated the facts calmly. Even if all the ability cards are drawn from Logan, with the almost hostile relationship between the two now, it is impossible for him to let the tiger go back to the mountain. "Then there's nothing else to say." Logan nodded with a wry smile, and suddenly protruded 3 sharp claws from his empty right hand. Just when Kyle thought he was going to continue to resist, The tip of the sharp claws touched his own at the heart. Kyle narrowed his eyes and asked calmly, "What do you want to do?" "I want to negotiate again." Logan gritted his teeth, stared at Kyle in front of him, took a deep breath and said, "There must be something you want in me, and this thing should also have the power of my life. Restrictions, otherwise you wouldn't let that eagle beast save me on the rooftop just now, but let that man kill me just now." Indeed, the rescue command issued to Lan Ying on the rooftop just now exposed this information directly. "I don't think that your threat of suicide can be used as a bargaining chip." Kyle kept his expression on his face, but secretly sighed in his heart. There was really nothing he could do at the time. Ability cards can only be drawn from living people, and item cards are similar to explosive equipment that can kill the item holder. "I only have this bargaining chip. How will I know if I don't try it?" Logan said with difficulty, the sharp claw of his right hand poking forward a little, piercing his skin completely. The self-healing factor was still suppressed, which also caused the body surface broken by the sharp claws to have no self-healing movement at all. Kyle was silent for a moment, then said in a deep voice, "Wait a minute, tell me, what do you want to negotiate? Looks like I made the right bet." Logan let out a sigh of relief, and said coldly, "The man just now, that is, the saber-toothed tiger, must die? That's no problem. I'll kill him." Kyle nodded in agreement. The saber-toothed tiger is currently an officer of the German army. When the Triple Allied forces invade Germany, they will have to deal with him sooner or later. Now promise to come down first, and then hold Logan down. As soon as Kyle thought of this, Logan in front of him shook his head and said, "No. I must kill him with my own hands, and you can only assist me by the side." "Impossible." Kyle refused, which was too aggressive. "As long as this condition is met, you can ask me to do anything in the future, whether it is a human experiment or a murder weapon. I will directly obey." After Logan finished speaking in a deep voice, the sharp claws slowly penetrated into the body, almost touching the depth of the heart, as if to express his firm attitude. The option to negotiate, the transfer falls back to Kyle. Isn't it using one's own life as a negotiation condition, but one's own loyalty? Kyle fell silent again. This time, he really carefully weighed the negotiation conditions proposed by Logan in his heart. The opponent is now a lone wolf who is driven to a desperate situation. If he can be kept under his own hands and firmly controlled, then the forces he will create in the future will also have high-end combat power enough to support the field. The only doubt is that the other party may betray in the future. Kyle asked directly, "If I agree to your negotiation plan, how do you show your loyalty?" "I would like to swear in the name of my father, Strel, and the name of my mother, Alorian, as long as you can help me kill the enemy with my own hands, no matter what you ask me to do in the future, I will not hesitate to execute it." Logan, after speaking seriously, he looked at Kyle expectantly. "Very well, then the negotiation will reach a preliminary consensus. Remember what you said today." Kyle shrugged and said decisively, "I'll help you kill the saber-toothed tiger, regardless of any consideration. The saber-toothed tiger must die." Chapter 72. After a month, more than half of the 200 million strong Triple Alliance army invaded French cities, cleared the remaining German troops, liberated most of the French territory, and then attacked the German border. This is also the most difficult line of war defense to break through. The German steel tank troops and armored vehicle armed forces have set up layers of heavy fire defense lines in the border urban areas. The Allied forces of the Three Kingdoms, which had been advancing all the way, was hit hard by shelling and bombing after arriving at the German line of defense. Tens of thousands of forward troops were isolated from the line of defense. As long as we break through this layer of defense, our army will be able to drive directly into the hinterland of Germany, and even take down the enemy's capital in one fell swoop. Fury, who led one of the Confederate forward troops, frowned, poked his head out from the broken wall, and looked half a mile away with military binoculars. The giant tanks that looked like steel fortresses were lined up in a row, and the muzzles of countless black holes were slanted towards the front area. Everyone understands the truth, but it is not so simple to break through the defensive line of the enemy tanks. This is not an armed combat power that can be made up for by the difference in numbers. How many soldiers go up our cannon fodder for nothing? Fury waved his hand and asked a frontline correspondent, "Where's our bomber plane? Why haven't we rushed over to support it yet?" The correspondent, who had just finished contacting the rear telegraph, reported, "Germany sent almost all of its fighter planes into the air, which greatly affected the bombing mission of our fighter planes. It is estimated that they will not be able to come here for a few days, without reinforcements from planes and tanks. Is it necessary to use the bodies of soldiers to break through this heavy front of fire? Fury gritted his teeth, and when he was thinking about the solution, a cruel young man's face flashed in his mind. If he is there, there must be a way to break through the defense line of this theater. Fury sighed. Since Kyle disappeared from the frontline combat zone a month ago, no soldier has seen him again. Where did Kyle go? With his strength, if he hadn't had something to do midway, he wouldn't have left a large battlefield for no reason. Fury was thinking in a daze, when a group of soldiers suddenly exclaimed from the side. Lieutenant Fury, there are 2 people riding motorcycles towards the tank defense line ahead. One of them should be Major General Kyle. It's Major General Kyle. The correspondent held a telescope in one hand, and patted the ground excitedly with the other. Kyle? Fury's heart shook, and he didn't care where his telescope was. He grabbed the communicator's telescope and looked towards the front area. It just so happened that at this time, the German tank troops also seemed to have reacted. Several tanks took the lead in aiming at the area, and the sound of artillery bombardment rang out, covering the ruined area that had long been potholed in front of them into a sea of blasting flames. Woo! The roaring sound of the engine was still resounding. Under the cover of the flying gravel and dust from the bombardment, the 2 modified motorcycles rushed out of the sea of fire area, and continued to charge at high speed under the muzzle of the tank without any hesitation. On one of the motorcycles was a young man in a black battle suit with a logo and a one-handed sword on his back. On the other motorcycle was a vicissitudes man in a jacket and jeans with a cigarette in his mouth. The 2 of them didn't look like they were trying their best to break through the bombardment zone, but more like a motorcycle race on weekdays. They refused to give in to each other and drove at high speed. It's really Kyle, who made me worry for so long. Fury put down the binoculars in his hand, muttered to himself, stood up when he realized something, and issued a loud command, "All forward soldiers! Get ready! Weapons! Wait until Major General Kyle rushes into the enemy tank defense line, and immediately attack me forward simultaneously." Boom! The cannonball dragged its tail sound at an extremely fast speed, flew straight through the air, and hit the ground swiftly, crushing even the gravel into dust within a 3-meter radius, and the flames and air waves swept away. Kyle rode a motorcycle with ease, reacting quickly and constantly micro-driving, avoiding intensive bombardment again and again, and the impact of the bombardment was easily defended by the venom suit on his body. Logan's eyes were filled with coldness and killing intent. While driving the motorcycle, the rapid shrapnel and debris from the bombing scratched his face, but he didn't even show any emotion. "Are you sure that man is in the tank unit in front?" Logan asked in a deep voice. "Of course," Kyle nodded, and said precisely, "In this month, the saber-toothed tiger has been cautious enough. There are no small-scale war zones that are not sure. It was only this morning that the Blue Eagle discovered is hiding here. In the German army, but in which tank, I don't know exactly," Logan said coldly. "This is enough. I can smell the stench from him within a certain distance, okay? I created chaos and defeated the tank formation defense by the way. You go find him and force him out." After Kyle finished speaking, he twisted the handle again, and the motorcycle under him soared to the highest speed. The pit rushed forward 3.5 meters into the air. Boom. The next moment, several shells landed on the previous ground, and the impact of the air wave knocked the floating motorcycle into the air. Kyle stepped on the seat and jumped forward from the motorcycle. There was still a distance of more than 10 meters, but Kyle quickly crossed it within a few seconds. When he landed from the air, the steel tank that was constantly bombarding was close in sight. The first one, Kyle's eyes were cold, and before the tank could fire again, he stepped on the ground and jumped high. His right hand clenched his fist and directly hit the hollow muzzle. The shell that was being fired into the muzzle hit the fist end of this engine arm guard, causing an explosion inside the tank. With the wailing of the soldiers in sight and a blast of fire, the steel tank was completely turned into a pile of scrap metal. Kyle withdrew his right arm from the muzzle of the gun, and his shoulder was slightly injured by the shell, but soon healed without damage under the cover of the venom suit. Self-healing factor, blue ability card. On the first day of negotiating with Logan, he was successfully drawn into his hands. The perfect physique of the original human body of a super soldier has no obvious increase in strength and speed. The most significant improvement is physical strength, vitality and self-healing ability. Because of this, Kyle is more confident in making some extreme offensive behaviors that seem to be self-harm but are normal. With a self-healing factor ability card as a safety insurance, one's own physique can truly be called a human weapon. Kyle sped up and jumped onto the side tank, pulled out the sodium carbon steel sword to cut off the steel connection, forcibly opened the top door, smiled faintly at the soldiers in the tank, and took a highly explosive grenade, opened the safety and threw it inside. He quickly closed the steel round door again, and the subtle blasting sound came through the steel armor of the tank, and then the round door and muzzle continuously leaked black smoke. The second car, Kyle stood indifferently on the damaged tank and counted, and was about to attack the other tanks one by one, when a rain of bullets shot at him from the side, and was bounced off by the Venom suit. I wasted some time on Logan's plot, and the pace of the war will speed up next, and it's over in the new week. I hope all book friends will vote for the author to support, please CAC. Chapter 73 Battlefield Dominance. The ordinary rifle bullets that were shot intensively in all directions looked like rubber, and they bounced off the Venom suit without any lethality. The firepower only made Kyle take half a step back without hurting his body at all. In fact, even if it contains extremely penetrating bullets, it can penetrate the tough protective layer of the Venom suit, and there are high density and strong muscles inside as a super soldier. The old-style sniper rifle bullets can hit the muscles under the surface, but that's all. Under the rapid recovery of the self-healing factor, as long as 2 consecutive shots do not hit the same place quickly, the deadly parts of the body will be directly penetrated. If it is completely transparent, it will not constitute a substantial threat to life. 3 layers of physical defense insurance allow Kyle to do whatever he wants on the battlefield. The heavy firebombing attack is too slow, and the general gun shooting is too weak. Clap clap clap, a burst of fire from the German army stopped. Dense metal bullets fell from Kyle's Venom suit, and rolled crisply from the top of the tank to the surrounding ground. Kyle raised his head indifferently, and looked down at the army soldiers behind the tank. Under the full coverage of the Venom suit, he stood on top of the tank like a humanoid demon. The countless German soldiers who were changing magazines around them backed away in horror. Is it a living person, or an unkillable monster? It's him. The devil of the US Emperor, he actually appeared here. It's over. It's over, we're all going to die here, even if the person wearing a black leather hood does not reveal his face. One-handed sword, black battlesuit, cross-death icon, major general rank, and undoubted monster-level strength. These exclusives clearly show the identity of the enemy in front of him. Beauty Kyle, the rumored executioner demon, really stood before their eyes. Fear seemed to be contagious, and it filled the hearts of every soldier in the German army in a short moment. Countless German recruits holding guns fell to the ground trembling. This is the powerful suppression of war heroes. No matter where they come to as the main battlefield, they always have indescribable dominance. A German officer with a brown beard waved his arms among the soldiers, and shouted encouragingly, no matter who he is. Hold no weapons in your hands, our homeland is behind us, we must. Before he could finish his passionate words, a blue laser light swept over a distance of tens of meters, and accurately landed on the officer's forehead. The laser energy exploded and evaporated his entire head into nothingness, and the remaining headless corpse was sprayed, falling backward with the blood. It's disturbing me, Kyle sneered, and put the energy pistol in his hand back into the holster. The high-tech weapons manufactured by the Hydra organization have disappeared since the energy manufacturing factory, and they have become rare limited editions now in the US military. He is the only one who is still equipped with it, and it can be used as a means of long-range confrontation at the right time. After this shot, some German recruits fled back on the spot with a mental breakdown. Although more German soldiers wanted to try to fight the shooting again, they were also under the turmoil of their own people, and the entire orderly lineup was in chaos. Kyle was about to take advantage of the chaos to deal with the tanks first, but saw a figure in a jacket rushing into the crowd of soldiers, recklessly waving the wolf-shaped claws in his hand to start the killing. Every step made several soldiers fall down wailing, accompanied by bloody blood. Logan, Kyle frowned at the figure, but soon, he knew why Logan rushed into the group of German soldiers. I saw Logan frantically tearing apart the German soldiers' bodies to open the way, and went deep into the enemy group messily but directionally. When Logan rushed to the center of the army in this way, a soldier wearing a steel helmet shrank his head behind the German army, and suddenly got up to reveal his height and tall and burly figure. After crossing into German territory, they fled quickly. The saber-toothed tiger is really cunning and cautious. It turns out that it has been hiding among the densely populated soldiers. Kyle shook his head with a smile. It's a pity that Logan and the saber-toothed tiger have been intertwined with old and new hatred for so many years. The saber-toothed tiger just smeared a few layers of mud on its body and hid it underground. The target appears, so things will be easier to deal with. Kyle smiled faintly, and was not in a hurry to catch up with the two personal grievances. He jumped onto the top of another tank again, holding a sodium carbon steel sword in his left hand, and quickly slashed at a German soldier who poked his head out of it to check the situation outside. The German soldier didn't even have time to make a miserable cry. His head flew high with his helmet on, and the blood flowing down caused the soldiers inside the tank to scream in horror. Kyle didn't bother to break into the tank, and threw down a simple and rude grenade, and the sound inside the tank quickly calmed down after the explosion. Da-da-da. The dense bullets continued to shoot ineffectively on the Venom suit, but a slight intervention delayed the time for Kyle to annihilate the tank arming. Kyle didn't even look at the soldiers outside. Under their desperate eyes, he concentrated on smashing and destroying the steel tanks that were the biggest threat to the Allied forces one by one. Number 13, he narrated the record numbers coldly, and Kyle was destroying another tank under his feet. At this time, from behind him, there was a sudden sound of dense and numerous military boots. Kyle looked up and saw a large number of Allied soldiers pouring out from half a mile away from the dilapidated ruins area where the baptism had been bombarded. Rush for me. Break through the borders of Germany and take down the evil Hitler in one fell swoop. Keep up with the pace of Major General Kyle. Victory is just around the corner. For the victory of the war, for Major General Kyle. Among the tens of thousands of Confederate soldiers, Kyle saw a familiar black officer among them at a glance. His bald head was particularly eye-catching in the sun, and he was still waving to the side. Fury, the Allied army, it's really slow to come. Kyle shook his head and commented that he had already destroyed a small part of the tank-armed group. At the same time, after seeing the Allied forces launch an offensive at this time, he also knew that the German defense line he was in was difficult to resist for another 10 minutes. This is like opening a gap in the embankment, and the raging flood will quickly burst the entire embankment and flood the area below the river channel. After the tank army with the most armed combat power was annihilated, the Allied forces were basically unimpeded, and they were able to attack the German capital with a strong force. Germany, the defeat is set, Kyle whispered, and turned to look at the vast territory of Germany behind him, as if he could see the end of this large-scale battle. Chapter 74. Kill. The huge momentum spread over the battlefield on the German border. Tens of thousands of forward troops of the Allied army broke through the tank fortress line of defense, and collided head-on with the already chaotic German army, forming an almost unilateral shooting slaughter. Under a continuous and dense rain of bullets, the soldiers of the German army fell on the pool of blood one after another like harvesting wheat, and soon the German troops who had lost their tank armament retreated in defeat and began to retreat into the territory escape. Kyle. This, among the Allied soldiers who were charging and chasing, Fury came out quickly, waving his hands, and ran towards Kyle standing on the tank. Fury, I'll leave this place to you. I still have something to do. We will meet in the German capital in a few days. Kyle took off the Venom hood, nodded to Fury, who was a few meters away, and then turned over and landed vigorously and flexibly, speeding up the pace of rendezvous into the Allied forces attacking German territory. When Fury arrived at the tank out of breath and looked around, Kyle had already disappeared in the vast crowd of soldiers. Kyle, who didn't lead the army all day, where did he go? Farilla sighed helplessly, but Kyle can always appear at the most critical moment of the battle, and often turn the tide of the battle in one fell swoop. Enough. On the other hand, the appearance of Kyle, the halo effect of the war hero, can bring huge psychological pressure to the enemy soldiers, and also have a group inspiration effect on the soldiers of one's own side. This is the irreplaceable role of superheroes on large battlefields. Kyle ran all the way, separated from the battlefield where the Allies and the Germans were fighting, and followed a location prompt given by the Blue Eagle at a high altitude. After entering the German territory, he quickly approached a mountain on one side. After a while, Kyle arrived at the dense forest at the foot of the mountain, paused, and glanced around. It can be seen that the small path further up the mountain, the trees and grass are in a mess. The smooth claw marks and fresh blood after the war are everywhere, and continue to sink into the top of the mountain. The faint sound of fighting and killing from the mountain, accompanied by the breeze in the mountain, clearly reached the ears. Lone wolf, saber-toothed tiger, Kyle whispered to himself, and set off to rush up the mountain. Soon the scene of two people fighting to the death on the top of the mountain came into view. On the top of the hundreds of meters high mountain, there are not many trees growing here, and there are cliffs on the other side. On the open space next to the cliff, Logan and the burly man stretched out their unique claws. The two were like wild humanoid beasts, using their strong bodies as weapons to ruthlessly collide. Their sharp claws left deep and visible bone-deep wounds on their respective bodies, and they healed each other quickly. Both are mutated beast genes, and both have the ability of self-healing factors. The fight between Logan and the saber-toothed tiger was brutal and bloody. After Kyle arrived at the top of the mountain, Logan and saber-toothed tiger quickly glanced to confirm. When Logan saw Kyle, he quickly retracted his gaze in relief. His expression remained cold and unchanged, and continued to fight ferociously. When the saber-toothed tiger saw Kyle, his generous and rough face suddenly changed color, and even the offensive movements in his hands stopped, almost causing Logan's sharp claws to disembowel him. With Logan alone, he is still, 2%, sure that he can kill the opponent. But if you add a meaty Kyle who is suspected to be on Logan's side, then there is no chance of winning at all. The saber-toothed tiger rolled to the ground in pain. Its fierce and cold eyes were alert from the corner of its eye, seeing that Kyle was just holding his hands, standing 5 meters away from the battle between the two of them like a bystander, without the slightest intention to intervene. The saber-toothed tiger felt a little relieved. What? To deal with you, you don't need Kyle and me to join forces. Logan looked coldly at the saber-toothed tiger in front of him, his eyes filled with blood and hatred, and raised his wolf-shaped sharp claws. I want to rely on one person, personally kill you here. That's what you said. Hearing this, the saber-toothed tiger grinned ferociously, and stood up from the ground as if nothing had happened. In just a few seconds, the claw wound on its stomach had healed. He let out a low growl, and his tall and burly figure rushed forward. Logan crossed his arms to protect him in front of him to block, but he was still slammed into the air like a kite that was disconnected, splashing blood continuously on the ground. It took a few rolls to stop. Do you think I've used all my strength just now? It's just to test you, the saber-toothed tiger sneered, and before Logan got up, he strode forward and continued to exert pressure. It's been so many years, and you haven't learned from it? The saber-toothed tiger, but the top gene in the natural ecological chain, is the top predator of your little wolf, said the saber-toothed tiger, grabbing the wolf that just got up from the ground. Logan's collar. Logan's figure is considered strong by normal people, but compared with the burly physique of the saber-toothed tiger, which is nearly 2 meters tall, it is too far behind. The saber-toothed tiger lifted Logan with one hand, and the other hand formed the shape of a tiger's palm. It continuously pierced Logan's abdomen with its claw nails. It was a violent attack with great power and lethality. The blood continued to splatter, and Logan's self-healing ability was a bit weak. The beat rhythm that can't be healed. Kyle, who was on the sidelines, couldn't help shaking his head when he saw this scene, but he had already expected it. The current Logan is not in the state of Wolverine injected with adamantium metal. It is indeed unrealistic to defeat the saber-toothed tiger alone at this time. After all, although the saber-toothed tiger gene is only a blue rare quality, it just suppresses the ability of the lone wolf gene, and the stronger beast physique and strength cannot be made up for by time and skills. Logan, I still need to help you, Kyle shrugged, the corners of his mouth slightly raised. During the negotiation, Logan only proposed that the saber-toothed tiger must be killed by himself, and he would not be allowed to join the battle. But, I didn't say that I couldn't give a little help in battle. Venom. Go, help Logan. Kyle patted his battle suit lightly. The venom seemed to know what he meant. It split into streaks of black silk liquid from the chest mark, and bounced to the ground, heading towards Logan. The battle situation is approaching. When the venom left him completely, Kyle wore a set of casual short sleeves and pants, which had been planned and prepared in advance. During the battle, the saber-toothed tiger held the struggling Logan with one hand. After stopping the fist with its sharp claws, he threw his arm aside vigorously, but threw the severely injured Logan towards the side cliff. Seeing that Logan was about to be thrown off the cliff, a ball of black liquid bounced and rushed out, and the differentiated countless black silk liquid wrapped his body tightly, forming a layer of tough black leather battlesuit. The next moment, the wings stretched out from the back automatically, and Logan, who was wearing a battlesuit, rolled over in the air and returned to the top of the mountain with his gliding ability. The Venom suit is fully covered, and the auxiliary combat system has been activated, Kyle complained boringly, leaning his back against a tree. It didn't seem like he came to participate in the war and death fight, but a leisure tourist, patiently watching the exciting duel that followed. Chapter 75 The New Form of Venom. In the battle situation on the edge of the cliff, The venomous Logan relied on his gliding ability to lightly fall back to the top of the mountain, retracted the double wings on the back of his battlesuit, and stared at the saber-toothed tiger fiercely with his scarlet eyes. His symbiotic fusion with the venom, the appearance of the battlesuit formed by full coverage, is very different from Kyle's previous one. The prominent muscular outline is not as strong and perfect as before, but has a more wild assembly line. Although the whole body of the battlesuit is still dark and black, it has light silver beast markings. The logo on the chest of the battlesuit has changed from a death cross to a delicate wolf head, and on the hood, there are two phantom wolf ears. The most obvious is the sharp bone claws, which have turned into a dark black like metal texture, reflecting the faint coldness in the sunlight. The saber-toothed tiger's face was solemn and tense, and it raised its sharp claws vigilantly, confronting Logan in the silver wolf suit as if facing a formidable enemy. He didn't know what happened just now. He only knew that Logan in front of him gave him a completely different feeling, powerful, cold, wild and ferocious, with an aggressive aura of a beast. In fact, even Logan himself doesn't know what state he is in now. Logan was thrown off the cliff just now, and he didn't see the venom attached to his body at all. He was just struggling, thinking that he must not fall, but the back of the transformed battlesuit automatically stretched out his wings, and assisted and guided him to glide back to the top of the mountain. Not only that, hatred, excavated and deepened, emotions, filled with excitement, power, constantly surging from inside and outside the body, the overall increase from the symbiosis of venom. Although I don't know what's going on, but in this state, I can win, Logan whispered, clenched his fists, stretched his black and cold claws to the extreme, and slowly raised his head to look at the opponent in front of him. Saber-toothed tiger. Outside of the battle situation, Kyle nodded lightly and muttered to himself, "That's right. Use the power I lent you to complete the negotiated conditions." The self-healing factor of the original purpose has been successfully drawn into the hands. If Logan can complete the revenge knot and submit to him, it will be the biggest additional benefit. Before Kyle could think too much, within sight, Logan had already taken the initiative to fight the saber-toothed tiger at close quarters. A head-on confrontation between black sharp claws and claw nails. This time, it was the saber-toothed tiger who suffered a dark loss. He did not expect that Logan not only increased his speed, but also increased his strength and claw strength, and the sharp claws tore a hole in his palm. "Damn it!" the saber-toothed tiger roared angrily, and stretched its arms forward a frame, trying to trap Logan in front of him, dragging the battle into a duel of strength that he was good at. In any case, physique and strength are his most confident areas of expertise. How could Logan make the saber-toothed tiger fulfill his wish? He quickly lowered his body and avoided the bear's embrace. Flexibly he passed under the shoulder of the opponent's burly figure, and swiftly added a few claw marks on the saber-toothed tiger's waist with his sharp claws. Blood splashed all over the ground like money. The saber-toothed tiger was both angry and frightened. Angry because it was the first time he suffered a series of injuries and losses, and frightened because Logan's overall strength increased significantly under the symbiosis of venom. Originally, he could still keep up with his speed and react, but with Logan's speed and agility improved, he was no longer at the same level. In the following time, Logan relied on his own speed and agility, like a black wolf, to keep passing around the saber-toothed tiger. On the other hand, the saber-toothed tiger looked like a sandbag of a human body, and even turning its eyes back and forth could not lock on to the black figure, let alone fight back. Whoosh whoosh, every time Logan passed quickly, he splashed blood on the saber-toothed tiger with his sharp claws. The blood spilled on the ground and dyed the mountaintop dark red. Even his mind and heart are biased like a beast, and he is constantly torturing the body of the prey, consuming physical strength, destroying the spirit, and further eating away at life. The saber-toothed tiger screamed suddenly, hugging its left ear with a bloodless face. There was a smooth gap there, which was obviously cut off by sharp claws. "This is for my father," Logan said coldly, holding a bloody ear in his left hand. He threw it directly over the cliff. No, the saber-toothed tiger's eyes were about to crack, and he watched as one of his ears was thrown into the cliff like garbage. With a frenzied growl, he desperately pounced on Logan. Logan jumped on the spot, jumped 3 or 4 meters high, stepped on the forehead of the saber-toothed tiger in midair, and quickly stabbed the opponent's back with his sharp claws. Give it back to my mother." Boom. The saber-toothed tiger stared wide-eyed, and was crushed to the ground by Logan. Logan sat on his waist, his black claws clawed all the way up from his back to the back of his neck. "This is for my wife," Logan growled, blood splashed into his eyes, making him look even scarlet and coquettish. The saber-toothed tiger, which had difficulty standing up, dug its tiger-shaped claws and nails deeply into the rocky soil, gasped for breath, almost gnawed at the soil, and began to heal itself, unable to keep up with the injuries and wounds it suffered, struggling so hard that blood and gravel splattered. "Logan, continue." At this moment, a young man's plain voice came from outside the battle. A one-handed sword was thrown, and Logan quickly caught it. The saber-toothed tiger on the ground seemed to realize something, and began to wow violently, its eyes full of fear and regret. "Logan, I was wrong. Give me a chance." The saber-toothed tiger started begging for mercy, hoping that Logan would let him go. Logan sneered, inserted his sharp claws into the spine of the saber-toothed tiger, fixed the opponent's body on the ground, and then slowly raised the one-handed sword in the other hand. "This is for my son." "No," the saber-toothed tiger roared, but the sound soon stopped in shock. The sodium-carbon steel sword pierced the back of its neck directly, and nailed it to the ground through its throat. All enmity ends here. Seeing the saber-toothed tiger hang down without vitality, Kyle, who had been watching, took a few steps forward. The silver wolf battlesuit on Logan's body was agitated for a while, turning into countless liquid black threads, bouncing and winding back to Kyle's body. Logan, who had lost his battlesuit and returned to his original appearance, sat on the body of the saber-toothed tiger, collapsed, with a dazed expression, and lay back slightly on the blood-stained ground. "Give me peace of mind," Kyle said softly. The target of these words was not Logan, but the venom that transformed back into the black suit. The symbiosis of venom absorbed an engraved part of Logan's hatred, resentment, speed, and strength. Now he's still a little restless, and he really wants to vent it on the battlefield. If Kyle wasn't the founder, mother, first-generation symbiote, and card owner of Venom, he really couldn't suppress Venom's rapidly increasing killing nature. "Understood. Have you unlocked the new ability?" Kyle stretched out his hands thoughtfully, and after clenching his fists, they quickly stretched out 3 dark claws, shining with a cold light. Venom suit, claw form. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.